He steps onto the training grounds, and the atmosphere instantly grows heavy with malice. Countless eyes lock onto him, burning with pure disgust for the clan's greatest failure. He is the living definition of a disgrace to his bloodline. But in this suffocating silence, he drops a bombshell that stops everyone cold. He challenges his own younger brother to a duel to the death. The crowd murmurs in disbelief, convinced he has just signed his own execution order. After all, his little brother is a prodigy who has sharpened his blade since he could walk. However, they forget that our protagonist was once a genius, too, before he drowned his God-given potential in a sea of alcohol, women, and endless debauchery, abandoning the path of the warrior. But the moment the bell rings, the atmosphere shifts. He actually sneers at his brother's lethal attacks. He parries every strike as if swatting away annoying insects. Then, with a single, cold motion, he ends it. The onlookers stand frozen, jaws on the floor, unable to process the impossible. They dismiss it as a fluke, pure, blind luck. That is, until an elite knight steps into the ring to restore order, only for history to repeat itself in a heartbeat. Christian folds the elite warrior instantly, utterly humiliating him before the entire squad. That is the final straw for the Knight Commander. She has finished letting this arrogant punk disrespect her unit's honor. She prepares to humble him, just as his family always has. In her eyes, he is nothing but drunk gutter trash waiting to be discarded. She launches a full-blown blitz, raining down a storm of attacks, but he shuts down her entire offensive effortlessly, leaving her and the platoon shaken to their cores. Then, in a split second of lost focus, he slams a brutal headbutt directly into her nose. She freezes, staring at her own blood, and immediately calls a halt. A fire ignites in her eyes. She is now completely obsessed with training this savage into an absolute weapon. But wait, how did this notorious loser become so overpowered overnight? The answer is simple. The lights are on, but a new soul has taken residence. A genius from the future has hijacked this body. You see, Chris is the ultimate master of all trades. He might appear average, but he possesses a cheat code talent that allows him to master any skill in the blink of an eye. Desperate for recognition, he once clawed his way into the hero's legendary party. He became the team's MVP, the utility player who held everything together. He handled the dirty work no one else could touch, earning the title the Great Extra. But just as he was about to hit his prime, it was game over. The Age of Destruction began, heralded by the calamitous Demon King of Carnage, a monster straight out of the Magic Empire who tore the Dominion of Light apart. The hero, Evan, was simply not strong enough to hold the line. Predictably, the party was wiped out, leaving the entire realm to fall into the Demon King's terrifying clutches. On his deathbed, Evan made one final, desperate request. He wanted Chris to step up as the new hero. He prayed to the heavens to rewind the clock and change fate. But Chris, he wasn't interested in that hero complex. After a life defined by endless grinding and suffering, death felt like a vacation-sweet freedom from the misery. Even if he was granted a second chance, Chris just wanted to live as a wealthy, spoiled noble. That was his final thought before fading to black. Then, boom, he wakes up in the past, reborn as a young noble within the Magic Empire. Yes, the exact same empire that spawns the Demon King of Carnage. For context, the Dominion of Light is human territory, while the Magic Empire is crawling with demons, also known as fiends. As luck would have it, he has landed right in the Dark Magic Clan, one of the 12 pillars supporting the Empire. Matching his ominous name, he realizes he has jumped back 15 years. That gives him exactly 5 years before the apocalypse begins. So, Chris got his wish to be a rich brat, but the body's original owner is a total nightmare. He is stuck inside Christian Van Baron Khazar. Scanning his memory files, Chris notes the middle name, Van, which flags him as a member of a branch family. The House of Count Khazar is an offshoot of the Baron County line. Basically, the heavy hitters of the Dark Magic Clan. Even as a branch family, the Khazars are stacked with overwhelming power thanks to their reputation. Their massive fortune only amplifies their influence. To put it simply, every fiend in the Empire knows that crossing them is a death sentence. Currently, the family has 2 heirs on the board, but the eldest, Christian, is a walking disaster zone. But here is the twisted part. In the original timeline, Christian gets assassinated by his own kin. This is a massive red flag for Chris, who just arrived and is essentially staring at a scheduled execution. The guy just wanted the chill trust fund life without the deadly drama. But crying over bad RNG won't save him. He needs a survival strategy, and fast. He has a 2-year buffer before the murder plot kicks in. Since the hit happens inside the House of Khazar, a clan obsessed with honor, the motive is obvious. Christian was such a loser, his own family clipped him to save face. So, Chris figures if he flips the script and acts like a decent human while keeping his head down, he might dodge the blade. With the how not to die plan in place, Chris pivots to dreaming about blowing his cash on a life of luxury. However, reality is about to punch him in the face. Flash forward to the apocalypse. The Demon King of Carnage triggers an era of total annihilation, launching a war to sacrifice humanity and finalize Ragnarok. By the time the world opened its eyes to the true threat, it was already game over. Both the Dominion of Light and the Magic Empire were wiped off the map, mere casualties of the Demon King's ego. If Chris wants to keep breathing, he needs a strategy to halt this incoming doomsday. The Demon King isn't just a powerhouse solo act. He commands a massive, fanatical legion of fiends from the heart of the Magic Empire. There is only one way to stop this madness. Chris has to level up and surpass the Demon King of Carnage himself. He needs to seize the throne of the Demon Emperor and dominate the ruthless hierarchy of the Magic Empire. He has 5 years on the clock before the destruction begins, just enough time to cook up a master plan. If he pulls this off, the entire Magic Empire falls into his hands. But suddenly, reality crashes back in. Christian is getting absolutely roasted by his father for sneaking out while grounded. The patriarch can't stomach the fact that Chris dared to show his face without atoning for the humiliating mess he caused recently. Count Khazar drops a final ultimatum, making it crystal clear. One more screw-up, and Chris loses his head literally. The crushing, suffocating pressure from the Count forces Chris to tremble instinctively. He finally chokes out an apology, owning up to every catastrophic mistake he has made. Chris is desperate to repair the bridge with Count Khazar because he has to scrub away the trash reputation attached to Christian. It is the only path to his master plan. He keeps apologizing, hoping to crack the Count's icy exterior, but cheap words aren't cutting it. The Count isn't buying a redemption arc after the chaos his son caused. Internally, Chris is panicking, wondering what kind of insanity the original Christian pulled to destroy his father's trust completely. The rumors about this guy are so wild that Chris can't even pinpoint the latest scandal. So, he plays the amnesia card. He claims the memory loss wiped the slate clean, so he doesn't recall the specific event that enraged his dad. He adds that while trying to recover his memories, he realized he has been living like garbage. He takes full responsibility for tarnishing the family name, but even with this confession, the Count remains stone cold. He has heard this sob story 1,000 times. Realizing talk is cheap, Chris goes nuclear. He demands to be thrown into the punishment cave for a full month to prove his transformation is legit. Let me break down the punishment cave for you. It is a high-security hell for fiends. Zero light, absolute silence, and complete sensory deprivation. Most captives lose their minds and descend into madness within days. Knowing this, Count Khazar doubts Chris could survive a few hours, let alone 30 days. Chris calculated the risks, but this suicide mission is his only shot at earning his father's trust. He is all in. Count Khazar, having heard Christian make empty promises before, hesitates. History says this ends in disappointment, but he decides to entertain this final gamble. However, there is a catch. If Chris walks out of that cave, the same loser he walked in, he is exiled from the clan. And in this world, exile is just a slow execution. Christian has a laundry list of enemies, and the second the clan's shield drops, they will hunt him down. Still, our boy accepts the terms, but he counters. If he survives, he wants a favor. The Count scoffs at the audacity, but agrees, assuming it is impossible anyway. Later, while Chris chills in his luxury suite, a servant announces the cave is ready. Enter Cox, the half-vampire butler and loyal servant of House Khazar. Chris nods, grabs his gear, and heads out, slinging a bag over his shoulder. As he strides through the halls, the staff and family members start gossiping. They are convinced the family failure is plotting another scheme. They bring up the recent disaster, where he insulted the heirs of the Poison Magic clan. It was such a catastrophe that Count Khazar had to personally bow and beg for forgiveness. No wonder the Count was seeing red and dismissing Christian earlier. That level of humiliation is enough to make a patriarch wish for death. The peanut gallery in the back is already placing bets, convinced Christian won't survive 48 hours in the punishment cave. But our boy just flashes a cocky smirk, knowing he is about to completely flip the script on their expectations. Lurking in the shadows, his little brother watches every move like a hawk, analyzing the situation. They finally reach the mouth of the punishment cave, a location that practically screams, "Abandon all hope." 2 towering Death Knights guard the entrance, looking absolutely terrifying. But they step aside to let Chris pass without issue. Before he can step into the darkness, a voice cuts through the silence. Let's meet this pint-sized menace. That is Thur Vanbar Christian's blood brother, and the family's so-called golden child. Forget the pleasantries though, because out of nowhere, this kid launches a surprise attack on his big brother. He halts the razor-sharp tip of his blade inches from Chris's eyeball. On the outside, our main character is stone cold, but internally, his soul just left his body from sheer terror at that near-death experience. Recovering instantly, Chris maintains his poker face and demands to know what the kid wants. Thorn didn't just speak, he spat venom, leaning in to remind his older brother exactly how pathetic his existence was. He warned him with a sneer that if he dragged the family name through the mud one more time, he was dead meat. But as the aggression rained down, a sudden realization struck Christian like a bolt of lightning. There was no mistake. This brat was definitely the one who executed him in the original timeline. Christian recognized that malicious energy. In the future age of destruction, Thorn became a notorious fiend, legendary for his dark curse magic. Unfazed by the revelation, Christian hit him with a cold, piercing glare that froze the air itself. The intensity was so overwhelming it made Thorn flinch, his dominance shattering instantly. Alpha status established. Christian stepped into the cave and slammed the heavy door shut. Thorn was left standing there, absolutely fuming. He was completely shocked, unable to comprehend this defiant, terrifying new version of his brother. Inside, Christian navigated the pitch-black void. Stripped of sight and sound, he was left with nothing but a faint tingling sensation in his fingertips to prove he still existed. It was a calculated, cruel design. Prisoners were granted just enough sensation to handle their inventory. Without that, they would never find their food and would simply wither away. For a normal soul, this sensory deprivation would shatter their mind in mere hours. But Christian, he was built different. After his years as a veteran treasure hunter, this darkness was child's play. In fact, total isolation was exactly what he ordered. It allowed him to turn his gaze inward, the only way to repair this absolute train wreck of a body. Sure, it was going to be a brutal grind, but relying on his legendary divine hand medical skills and his modified bone compression art, confidence surged through him. Plus, thanks to his newfound wealth, he had loaded up on premium magic stones, making this impossible recovery mission a total breeze. He didn't think he would snag these stones given their insane price tag. But that is the perk of having deep pockets. Money is the ultimate superpower. Back in his past life, he and the hero Evans scraped and clawed through hell just to get one. Step 1. Deploy the white magic stone to purge the toxins. It was tedious work, but absolutely critical. He had to scrub every ounce of poison from his meridians using pure white mana. One slip-up equaled agonizing pain, but for a pro like Christian, easy mode. He navigated the lethal process without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Count Khazar grilled his butler for an update. The servant confirmed Christian went into the punishment cave without a single fight. He predicted the boy would be so broken by the silence, he wouldn't even have the energy to scream for help. This grim forecast sent the Count spiraling into panic mode. He started second-guessing his decision to exile his son to such a hell. He remembered when Christian was a bright-eyed prodigy with limitless potential and couldn't figure out where destiny went so wrong. He began to wonder if that raw talent was actually a curse that destroyed his ego. But whatever the cause, the Count decided he would rather see his son dead than living a crippled, miserable existence. He wanted to believe in the boy, but the trust was gone. It wasn't the first time he had been played by his son's silver tongue. Desperate, the Count asked the butler if Christian took anything with him. The butler tried to stall, but cracked under the Count's intense interrogation. He admitted Christian smuggled in magic stones, specifically, dream stones, artifacts known for inducing powerful hallucinations. Terrified that Christian was chasing a high or planning something reckless, the butler urged the Count to open the cave right now. Count Khazar shut him down cold. Even if Christian was scheming, the Count figured it was better to just let the kid rot in there. 30 days crawled by in agonizing slowness. Count Khazar was already lurking outside the cave entrance before Chris even showed his face. The old man was convinced his son was broken, mentally wrecked by the void. But get this, Khazar was totally thrown off when Christian strutted out of that darkness, wearing a massive, confident grin. It was a shocker, but there was no denying it. Christian walked the talk and came back a totally new man. The Count caught that fire in his son's eyes, a fierce spark that had been missing since Christian was just a toddler. The glow-up was impressive, but Khazar wasn't dropping his guard yet. He was dead set on the idea that surviving 1 month wasn't enough to prove the trash had actually turned into treasure. Christian didn't blink, though. He vowed to grind even harder if that was the price. He knew his dad thought he barely scraped by in there, but honestly, Christian was thriving. He was so busy training, he didn't even have time to be bored. First, he min-maxed his body for swordplay, using the white mana stone. Unlimited stamina unlocked. But the real MVP was the Dream Stone. The butler tried to ban him from taking that narcotic rock inside, but Christian was glad he stuck to his guns. The hallucinations from the stone basically speed-ran his evolution. Plus, he managed to forge 2 separate mana cores inside his body. Christian was practically patting himself on the back for dominating that death cave. He was convinced his brain was massive. I mean, dual cores? That is a 1 in a million roll. Because of how rare it is, he cloaked his light core inside the dark one. If anyone found out, heads would absolutely explode. His winning streak kept going, too. He sensed someone outside was praying the hallucinations would break his mind. Little did they know, he was just getting started. But Christian uses that lingering spite as fuel to ignite his determination. In reality, he is ready to cash in that favor, and he asks the big question. He demands access to the Black Swamp Knights training facility. Count Khazar's face instantly twists in absolute disgust at the sheer audacity. In the Count's eyes, a disgrace like Christian has zero business stepping foot on that hallowed ground. The Black Swamp Knights are top tier, one of the 3 elite orders backing the Dark Magic clan. Only the apex predators flex their skills there, but Christian holds his ground like a mountain. He isn't asking for a badge, just a visitor pass to train. He argues that soaking up the aura from elite warriors is essential for his growth. After a tense silence, the Count caves. But he drops a lethal warning. Embarrass the family in front of the knights, and you die. Christian accepts the terms, but before his father can leave, he pushes his luck with one final request. Later, Christian rolls up to the training grounds. While he minds his own business, the knights in the back start chirping, recognizing him as the infamous family disappointment. They aren't even trying to whisper. While trashing the Count's son, they prove exactly how savage the magic empire is right now. Around here, power is the only currency that matters. But Christian has an ulterior motive for entering the lion's den. He needs to infiltrate the library. His father said the only way to unlock that door is to secure a recommendation letter from Deputy Commander Melon. That is the quest condition for the key. The library holds all the Khazar family's forbidden dark magic secrets. Chris has to get inside to learn the craft. Chris is fine with the quest, but he is confused why a clan VIP needs permission slips like a commoner. Then, his father reminds him about that time Christian pawned off legendary spellbooks on the black market. Yeah, even Chris has to admit his past self was absolute garbage. The good-for-nothing label was totally earned. So, now the mission is securing that sign-off from the deputy commander. Suddenly, Chris's little brother, Thorn, bursts onto the scene. The kid doesn't waste a single second before roasting his older brother with some colorful insults. Naturally, Christian finds dealing with this brat a total drag, but as he processes the situation, a devilish smirk creeps onto his face. This might actually be the opening he needs. Thorn struts up, demanding he turn around and get lost. He tells Christian not to waste this second chance. He barely survived inside the punishment cave, after all. But Chris stays sassy, making the little brat flinch by dropping the bomb that father was the one who gave him the green light to be here. Right then, the atmosphere grows heavy as a major player stomps onto the scene. Her death stare is sharp enough to slice steel, and she makes it crystal clear. She absolutely despises seeing Christian here. The Count's permission slip? Totally irrelevant to her. Just so we are clear, this terrifying powerhouse is Deputy Commander Melon. She is radiating intense 4-star dark energy, trying to crush Chris and send him running home to mommy. But let's be real. It takes way more than a little killing intent to rattle our main character. The crowd watches, stunned, as Christian stands there, stone cold against her overwhelming aura. Even Melon flinches, realizing just how unbothered, almost psycho he looks. Christian casually says, "Hey," and kicks things off. He owns up to his trash reputation and knows nobody trusts him, but he is ready to show everyone he deserves a spot on these training grounds. Christian drops a bombshell. He wants to fight one of the warriors right here, right now, to prove his worth. Obviously, Deputy Commander Melon laughs it off, thinking he is just clowning around, but Christian isn't playing games. With total composure, he tells her to chill with the dark energy pressure. Then, he humbly requests a straight-up fist fight. Claiming his mana is fried from years of partying and being a degenerate, he asks for a physical duel. Melon actually considers it. Even in a duel, damaging the family heir is risky business, so she double-checks if he is seriously ready to throw hands with zero magic. Christian stays cool as a cucumber, announcing he wants to pick his victim personally. He points a finger at his annoying little brother, Thorn. This absolutely triggers Thorn, who sees red at the idea of being challenged by his loser big brother. Even Melon thinks Christian just signed his own death warrant. She warns him to pick someone else since Thorn is a 2-star user. For context, hitting 2-star rank at 13 years old is insane unless you are a heaven-defying prodigy. Most people, whether they are 13 or 23, cannot even dream of that power level. But as we know, Christian is built different. He stands his ground, insisting he needs to fight someone out of his league because that is the only way to silence the haters. Beating Thorn is the perfect power move to restore his honor. However, he drops a taunt, asking if Thorn is too scared to fight his own flesh and blood. Thorn instantly takes the bait, his ego bruised, and accepts. Moments later, they square up in the center of the arena. The other warriors form a ring, hyped to watch Thorn wipe the floor with Christian and humble him. But before the violence starts, Christian clarifies the win condition. Christian suggests a mercy rule. They fight until someone taps out. But Deputy Commander Melon, already sick of his attitude, counters with a brutal stipulation. They fight until one side is knocked out cold. She figures this gives Thorn the green light to absolutely destroy his brother without worrying about a surrender. Our main character, however, is not worried about himself. No, he is actually concerned for Thorn's safety. He does not actually want to hospitalize his little brother. Of course, this perceived arrogance just makes Thorn absolutely furious, itching to teach his older brother a painful lesson. Christian sees his opening instantly. He initiates combat by slapping the soul out of his brother's body. It is humiliating. It is disrespectful. But the bell rang, so it is 100% legal. Thorn swings back wildly in a rage, but Christian effortlessly weaves past it with a simple lean back. Honestly, this match is practically rigged, but not how you think. As a 0-star scrub, Christian should be dead meat against a dark energy user. But take away the magic? Different ballgame. Thorn's sloppy technique leaves him wide open, and Christian delivers a brutal knee smash straight to the gut. Christian is dominating this brawl because he has lifetimes of combat experience downloaded into his brain. Plus, if you count the secret light powers he unlocked in the punishment cave, he is technically hitting 3-star levels of strength. So yeah, the brat never stood a chance. Thorn looks totally wrecked after that combo, leaving the audience completely shook. Meanwhile, Christian starts throwing verbal jabs to tilt his brother even more. The trash talk is working like a charm. Inside, Christian is having a blast watching the kid flail around. Thorn, however, is convinced that Christian is cheating somehow. Christian shuts that down real quick. No cheats, just a massive skill issue on Thorn's part. That burns. While Christian continues trolling him, Thorn finally snaps. He clenches his fist, leaking ominous dark energy, and throws a full-force, mana-charged punch. Christian sidesteps the lethal hit with ease. Thorn unleashes a relentless storm of fists. But to Christian, he is untouchable. Not a single scratch lands. Finally, Christian swats the attack aside like it is nothing, and after nullifying his little brother's dark energy in a split second, he delivers a devastating counterblow. That single strike sends Thorn hacking up blood before he faceplants into the dirt. The crowd instantly erupts into hushed whispers and wild speculation. They are convinced Thorn must have slipped up or simply took pity on his trashier older brother. Seeing Thorn flattened by the family failure breaks their brains. But Deputy Commander Mellon? She clocked exactly what just went down, and she is absolutely losing her mind over it. Christian, cool as ice, demands Mellon confirm if he has passed the test, or if there are still more hoops to jump through. Still reeling from the shock, Mellon stammers out that he has indeed proven his worth. That validation sounds like a symphony to Christian. Now he is ready to execute Phase 2. Back in his quarters, Christian revels in finally hitting 1-star rank in dark magic. Since he is still not totally comfortable wrangling this energy, and clearing out the previous Christian's messy residue took forever, it was a serious grind. And as for dual-wielding the power of light, that is going to require a serious level up. Suddenly, his assigned maid, Marie, materializes on command. Plot twist. She is actually a high-level banshee. Christian cannot help but feel a shiver down his spine, seeing that they are using a literal evil spirit as a housekeeper. It is so creepy. He seriously considers asking the Count for a replacement. Anyway, he orders some juice to fuel up before his training session begins. Marie nods, but then drops a bomb, asking if she should spike the juice with fresh human blood. She swears blood juice is a delicacy, and keeps pushing for the upgrade. Christian, meanwhile, is totally grossed out by her morbid vibe, and just demands plain strawberry juice. A bit later, as Christian heads out to grind, the butler creeps up from behind, suggesting he maybe skip it. The old man feigns concern, claiming Christian has been pushing his limits too aggressively lately. He puts on a show of being proud, acting touched by how diligent and sincere the young master has become, claiming he always believed in Christian, even when everyone else called him a loser. Christian, however, sees right through the snake's hypocrisy. He shoots the servant a death glare, rejecting the fake validation. The butler scrambles to apologize, realizing he overstepped and quickly retreats, but not before wishing Christian a good session. Christian gets a major bad vibe from that guy, even if he cannot quite pinpoint the issue yet. Later, walking the grounds, he notices the shift. The way people look at him has become softer, submissive even. He realizes this is the perfect chance to win them over. Little by little. Gotta strike while the iron is hot, right? He drops his gear and starts running sword drills. A lurking fiend spots him and sprints straight to Deputy Commander Mellon to report it. Hearing that young Master Christian is back at the training grounds, Mellon's expression darkens immediately. Her curiosity burns like a fever. She cannot deny the lethal precision of his movements during the duel with Thorn. Sharp, calculated. She is dying to uncover Christian's true objective. What truly shook her to the core was how he casually dissipated his brother's dark energy at the critical second. That level of control proves he held the entire rhythm of the battle in his palm from the very first breath. If her instincts are right, he might possess the raw potential to rival Lord Ekadaron, the golden boy of the main family. But then reality crashes down. Christian is merely a bastard who squandered his life on debauchery. The gap between him and Lord Eshed should be an uncrossable ocean. Melon steps into the courtyard, feigning ignorance of the training, but the sight before her freezes the blood in her veins. Christian has already reduced his opponent, Cannon, to a whimpering mess on the floor. The spectators stand paralyzed. A known outcast crushing a one-star fiend? It defies all logic. Even Melon finds herself unable to look away. However, Christian looks at these so-called elite Black Swamp Knights with nothing but bored disappointment. Not a single one radiates true danger. His voice rings out, mocking them, asking if a warrior here possesses the spine to actually fight. The insult strikes a nerve. Enraged by the disrespect, a hulking fiend named Torin stomps forward, intent on crushing this upstart. Chris merely curls his lip into a predator's smirk and beckons the giant to come and die. He revels in their stupidity. They are walking straight into his trap. Torin, thirsting for violence, unleashes a devastating swing. Sparks shower the ground as steel shrieks against steel. Chris laughs internally. He knew they would hand over their secret arts on a silver platter. His eyes are not just watching, they are dissecting his opponent in real time. He downloads every micro-movement, burning the data directly into his muscle memory. Bingo. The pattern reveals itself in a heartbeat. Torin employs the infamous mud swordsmanship. That is a high-tier, legendary technique. Blueprint acquired. Chris decides to test drive the skill immediately. He mirrors the move with terrifying perfection, delivering a surgical slash across Torin's face. A single strike determines the victor. The mighty Torin collapses, eating the dust of defeat. Silence descends. Jaws hit the floor, including Deputy Commander Melon's. Reality hits hard. Christian's victory against Thorn was pure skill, not luck. The boy is a lethal weapon. Yet, our protagonist just sighs. He once idolized these knights, only to find them pathetically basic. Now, they are nothing more than glorified experience points. He shifts his gaze upward, locking eyes with Deputy Commander Melon. With zero hesitation, he roasts her training methods, calling her entire squad an embarrassment. The atmosphere turns suffocating. Everyone knows that challenging Melon is a death sentence, and Melon intends to prove them right. She is convinced these petty victories have bloated Christian's ego to fatal levels. But our boy is not just barking. He is ready to bite. Staring into the abyss of her eyes, he issues a direct challenge. Hook, line, and sinker. She snaps. Her blade swings with enough kinetic force to literally vaporize the earth beneath them. The beast has been poked. Weeks of perceived humiliation from this bastard boil over into pure, unadulterated wrath. That shockwave was a declaration she could delete his existence in a heartbeat. Yet, Chris stands unmoved, like a mountain in a storm. He casually admits she possesses the stats to crush him instantly. But then, he plays his trump card, the rulebook. A technicality binds her. Using dark energy against a one-star novice is a grave violation of the knight's code. Her overwhelming magic is officially banned. She must fight clean. He proposes a handicap match wooden swords only. Melon, arrogant in her base stats, accepts the terms. Even without mana, she plans to shatter his legs into splinters. Talk is cheap. It is execution time. Fight on. Melon lunges, bringing her practice blade down like a falling guillotine. Clack! Chris parries the blow, and instantly, they vanish into a blur of motion too fast for mortal eyes to track. The crowd questions their sanity. Christian is not just surviving. He is dancing on the edge of a blade with a deputy commander. Cold sweat breaks on Melon's brow. She swings with lethal intent, but she cannot land a single hit on this so-called weakling. It is a nightmare of déjà vu. Just like with his previous opponents, she is fighting a ghost. Sensing her panic, Chris weaves trash talk between his dodges, driving her deeper into blind fury. She cracks. Instinct takes over, and she charges her blade with forbidden dark energy. But Chris anticipated this foul play, and sidesteps the smash. He closes the distance in a flash. Bam! A brutal headbutt connects squarely with the bridge of her nose. Crimson sprays the air. This was not reckless. It was cold calculation. He knew that without her mana barrier, her physical defense would crumble. A 200 IQ play. If Melon were a pure tank build instead of a mage hybrid, that move would have failed miserably. But instead of screaming, Melon touches the blood on her face and begins to cackle like a maniac. Chris actually finds the reaction strangely charming. He definitely did not predict the psycho laughter. But looking at her wild eyes, game recognizes game. She finally admits the truth. She had looked down on him, and that was a fatal mistake. She vows to oversee his training personally, but let's be real, she intends to drag him through hell to forge him into a weapon. Then, Chris drops the bombshell. He points to a faint red line on her neck, the result of his headbutt. If his nails had been dipped in poison, the game would be over. She would be a cooling corpse right now. Melon accepts her defeat with the grace of a warrior. She is ready to grant him any reward he desires. However, there is a catch. She demands a rematch. Chris is down, but he has a counter-demand of his own. She agrees instantly, eager for redemption. Seizing the moment, Chris makes the most audacious request imaginable. Kneel before me. The air in the room instantly freezes. That is an impossible request. Her loyalty is bound by blood to House Baron, the ruling family of the Dark Magic clan. Chris knows exactly the weight of those words, but he waves it off with arrogance. When he ascends as the clan leader, he will be the master she serves. Melon is stunned. She thinks he has lost his mind. There are already 5 official young lords standing between him and the throne. They possess pure, unblemished bloodlines. Christian, he is nothing but an illegitimate child, a bastard with zero claim to the crown. Christian just flashes a wicked grin. He reminds her that, technically, no ancient law explicitly forbids a branch family member from seizing the title by force. Ambitions aside, the pact is sealed. The rematch is confirmed for exactly 1 month from now. No restrictions, no safety rails, just pure, unadulterated combat. And honestly, Melon feels her blood boiling with excitement at the very idea. She is already picturing him tasting defeat in a spectacular fashion. But Chris? He just smirks and tells her to leave her arrogance at the door. Life comes at you fast, after all. Dropping that little nugget of wisdom, he turns to leave, promising to meet her on the battlefield in 1 month. Internally, he swears a silent oath. He will show her exactly who the true predator is. Cut to the estate. Christian slides that gleaming recommendation letter, straight from Deputy Commander Melon to his father. But he does not just hand over the paperwork. He takes a moment to roast the soldiers' pathetic fundamentals, suggesting they desperately need to grind their basics if they want to survive. Flashback to earlier. Melon, fresh from her skirmish with Christian, reveals the shocking truth to the Count about his son's insane transformation. Even with a garbage star rank, the kid was demolishing enemies who possessed far superior stats. Even Melon herself was forced to eat humble pie by his unexpected skills. She admits the brawl was actually thrilling, even if taking that loss caught her off guard. Back in the present, the Count is stoic, his eyes dead set on his son. He soaks in the silence, trying to process if this absolute monster standing before him is actually Christian. Finally, he breaks the tension and hands over the Holy Grail, the library key. Later, clutching that key feels like pure victory. But this is not just about unlocking some dusty books. He has also secured the ultimate prize, Melon's trust. You see, Melon is not just some random background character. She is royalty from the main branch of the Dark Magic clan, a legitimate 6-star high fiend from the chaotic age of destruction. If Christian wants to dominate the entire Dark Magic clan, having a warrior like her in his corner is non-negotiable. She is not fully singing his praises just yet, but he bets that 1 month is plenty of time to seal the deal. Strutting away with that win, he replays Count Khazar's expression, confused, but definitely proud. Chris realizes that even demons struggle with family bonds. And honestly, Count Khazar is miles better than the toxic father figure from his past life. Because of that, he vows to make the old man proud. Stepping into the library, Chris scopes out the forbidden loot grimoires banned in the Dominion of Light. We are talking blood magic, summoning curses, the truly dangerous stuff. Scanning the shelves, he snags a specific title, but suddenly, boom, a jump scare. His evil spirit maid materializes out of nowhere, nearly giving him a heart attack. When he demands to know why she is lurking in the shadows, she drops a fun fact. She used to be the head librarian right here. She also confesses she is crushing hard on Christian, even though the feeling is 0% mutual. That does not stop her from aggressively flirting, which just makes him cringe in secondhand embarrassment. But getting back to business, she notes the book he grabbed is a 4-star dark magic tome called Binding Seal, and she is skeptical. Can he even read that high-level gibberish? Christian, activating full ego mode, declares he is a literal genius. Marie knows he is bluffing, but she plays along, hyping him up with fake enthusiasm. Curious, she asks why he chose that specific book, and he drops a cryptic one-liner. He is hunting a rat. Cue the dramatic tension. Cut to Chris grinding out his daily drills with the squad. He is mentally scrolling through his list of suspects, the potential snakes hiding in the grass. Suspect number 1, Thorn, his little brother who hates his guts more than anyone alive. Suspect number 2, Cox, the butler. An outsider to the bloodline, but somehow he has VIP access to the punishment cave. The clan respects raw power way more than social rank, so it is incredibly strange for someone like Cox to be hovering around a weakling like the old Chris. Unless there is a puppet master pulling Cox's strings. Whoever it is, they want Christian buried 6 feet under. The ultimate red flag had already been planted. Cox had slipped him a dreamstone right before the punishment cave, a silent execution order disguised as a gift. To drag the rats into the light, Chris chooses a dangerous path. He must become the very villain they believe him to be, wearing the mask of a useless scoundrel. If he implodes, their vigilance will crumble. Suddenly, in the middle of his training, He freezes, staging a theatrical tantrum about the unbearable agony of effort. He throws his equipment aside and storms out of the session, declaring that it is time for slumber, not sweat. The sudden lethargy baffles the household, just as he planned. Later, under the chandelier's glow, Chris transforms dinner into a spectacle of arrogance. His father's face darkens with fury and shame. The hope that his son had redeemed himself shatters, and the Count storms out, crushed by the weight of disappointment. Watching the patriarchs retreating back, a shard of guilt pierces Chris's heart. Yet, he steels himself. This four-dimensional chess game demands sacrifice to save the family. He amplifies the toxicity, weaving a web of nasty rumors. He creates the image of a prodigal son, returning to his darkest habits. He harasses the maids and scatters gold like worthless paper. However, a snag appears in his grand design. Every time he demands liquor, his personal maid pours him vintage wine. It is essentially glorified grape juice. Chris demands something with a sting, for the scent of true intoxication is the linchpin of his trap. He needs the puppeteer to bite. They must believe he has fully relapsed into the hopeless degenerate of the past. Then, in the privacy of his chambers, the mask slips. Boom. He manifests absolute dominion over the binding seal spell. The execution is flawless. His loyal maid stands frozen, eyes wide with shock, unable to comprehend that he has already conquered such a complex technique. Chris does not miss the chance to boast. He paints himself as a misunderstood genius, a narrative thread he has been spinning since the beginning. He unveils the truth. While the world thought he was sowing chaos, he was cultivating power, mastering arcane arts in the shadows. But before he can pop the champagne, the door crashes open. His younger brother, Thorn, bursts into the room without warning. Christian's mental reflexes are godlike. In a heartbeat, the mastermind vanishes, replaced by a slurring, wasted mess of a human being. Thorn's gaze narrows, dripping with unfiltered disgust. He sees only a clown where a brother should be. This intense, raw fury from Thorn is actually a blessing in disguise. It proves the critical variable. The boy is innocent. He plays no part in the conspiracy aimed at Chris's life. With Thorn cleared, Chris pulls him into the circle of trust. He whispers of a serpent lurking within the mansion, a traitor praying for their ruin. Chris explains his strategy. Playing the reckless fool is the bait. He must become exactly what the enemy expects to force them into the open. To seal the boy's belief, he thrusts the wine bottle toward Thorn. He urges Thorn to inhale the aroma. It is a fake, a mere prop in this elaborately crafted theater of deception. The identity of the snake remains a mystery, but the trap is set. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass heralds a servant scrambling into the room. Christian snaps back into character. He screams at the trembling servant, demanding the butler answer for sending this swill instead of the vintage he ordered. The servant bows, stammering apologies. He claims Cox is currently indisposed with urgent matters. Chris, channeling the rage of a man 5 drinks deep, decides to pay the butler a personal, chaotic visit. Thorn lingers in the background, staring in disbelief. The act is terrifyingly convincing. His brother has become a monster of deception. When Christian finally corners Cox, he does not hold back. He upends the bottle, emptying its contents directly over the butler's head. Liquid drips down the man's face as Chris accuses him of treachery, claiming he is trying to pass off trash as treasure. Cox apologizes, his voice steady, insisting the correct bottle is on its way. But Chris is relentless. He demands Cox fetch it personally, right now. The butler attempts to stand his ground, explaining he is in the middle of handling critical estate business. He suggests a later delivery, but Christian keeps prodding, trying to fracture Cox's perfect mask. Finally, the butler relents and departs to obey. Chris is internally stunned by the man's patience, yet, beneath the servitude, he senses a wave of killing intent radiating off the butler like heat. Alone at last, Chris pounces on the documents left exposed on the desk. His eyes dart across the ledgers, and a predatory grin splits his face. He has caught the butler red-handed, cooking the books. Embezzlement fits a thief, but is it the mark of a traitor? Financial fraud is a crime, but it is not yet the smoking gun for treason. Cox returns with the requested wine. Christian, never breaking character, snatches the bottle from his grip. He asks if the butler holds a grudge for the humiliation. The butler, however, plays the saint, claiming he is merely grateful to serve his young master. But before he withdraws, Cox drops a poisoned apple. He mentions that some of Christian's old friends are waiting at the usual haunt. Chris has absolutely no idea who these people are. Cox warns him to stay away, calling them bad news. But to a thrill seeker, that warning is nothing but an invitation. Hook, line, and sinker. Chris prepares to walk straight into the lion's den. Inside the hideout, a lavish feast awaits. As Chris takes his seat, his gaze freezes. A terrified maid pours drinks for the guests. Rage ignites within him at the sight of these pigs tormenting the poor girl. As the maid hands him the glass, a primal warning bell rings in his mind. His survival instincts scream that something is lethally wrong. He doesn't hesitate. With a violent flick of his wrist, he dashes the wine directly into the fat man's face. No warm-up, just dominance. His voice thunders through the room, accusing them of lacing his drink with a deadly toxin. Before chaos can erupt, he casts a dark sleep spell on the maid, dropping her instantly to spare her innocent eyes from the carnage he is about to unleash. The hired thugs freeze, eyes wide with terror. They never expected the young master to wield such high-level dark arts. Before they can process the shock, Christian slams both assassins face first into the table. Blood sprays across the wood as the heavy thug screams in confusion. Christian answers with cold steel. He draws his dagger, his eyes burning with zero tolerance for their treacherous games. The interrogation is brutal and short. Under the pressure, the skinny assassin breaks, admitting they are mere pawns following orders. They were being blackmailed over a drug ring. Their mission was simple: frame Christian for a heinous crime. The script was to pin the maid's murder on him. Christian twists the blade deeper, demanding the name of the puppet master pulling the strings. The skinny rat starts to get cold feet, but the main character decides it is time to remind this clown who truly holds the leash of life and death. Cornered and shaking, the traitor finally spills the tea. It was Butler Cox. The snake in the grass orchestrated this entire shadow plot. With their cover completely blown, the assassins realize they are finished. They drop to their knees in total submission, smashing their heads against the floor and begging for mercy, swearing to do anything to save their worthless lives. Christian lets the silence hang heavy, suffocating them with his presence. He agrees to spare them, but only if they become his mindless dogs. To seal the deal, he forces them to verbalize that promise twice. The moment the words repeat, his binding spell snaps onto their souls like a vice. The scene shifts to the next day. Butler Cox rushes to Count Khazar, sweat pouring down his face. He plays the part of the loyal servant, claiming Christian has gone completely insane and committed cold-blooded murder. The lie is vicious. Cox claims a drunk Christian slaughtered the servant girl and dumped her body in the river like common trash. Count Khazar's expression darkens. He wastes no time, ordering Christian to be dragged before the family court to answer for this atrocity. In the grand courtroom, Christian stands tall, pleading innocent without flinching. The Count scoffs, declaring that the witnesses will seal his son's fate. Christian laughs in the face of danger. He declares the murder never happened, which means the witnesses are straight up lying. He points to the door, and the dead maid walks in, alive and well, shocking the entire assembly. The two conspirators start sweating bullets. Their perfect frame-up has just collapsed into dust. The maid speaks up, her voice trembling but clear as she exposes the true narrative. Christian didn't kill her. He saved her, sent her home safely, and even gave her money for rent. A true noble. The only villains here are the two men standing trial. The court erupts into chaos as the culprits are stripped of their lies. To drive the final nail in the coffin, our boy activates his magic. His eyes glow as he tugs on the invisible strings of the binding spell, turning his former enemies into puppets. Unable to resist, they sing like canaries, admitting they filed a false report to destroy the young master. Then comes the bombshell. They confess they were acting on direct orders from Butler Cox to frame Christian. The butler's composure shatters. He goes into full panic mode, defending himself like a man fighting for his last breath. But Christian is already 10 steps ahead of this snake. He turns to his father and asks to borrow the family's supreme authority for just a moment. He has one specific question for the traitor. He vows that this single inquiry will tear the veil of lies apart forever. The Count gives the green light. Cox is forced to take the hot seat in the defendant's stand, trembling under the pressure. But before Christian can step up to the judge's podium, his father issues a chilling warning. Abuse this power, and you lose it. Christian takes the seat, drilling into Cox with the full weight of a tyrant. First order of business. He demands defendant Cox swear to speak nothing but the absolute truth. Cox has no choice. He swears. But the moment Cox repeats that oath a second time, the trap snaps shut. Our main character triggers the binding seal. Dark energy explodes through the courtroom, freezing everyone in place. The audience is floored. A mere child shouldn't possess 4-star dark magic. It defies all logic. Here is the lore breakdown. Basically, our guy hacked the binding seal, allowing him to use it even at a lower star rank. The catch? The target must verbally swear twice to activate the curse. Now it all clicks. That is why he made Cox repeat himself and why he forced those goons to promise twice. It was all a setup. With the binding seal locked in, the main character leans forward, ready to grill this dirtbag about why he dared to cross him. The mind-crushing spell begins to devour Cox's sanity. The instant he tries to dodge the question, he manages to withstand the agony for a few heartbeats, but his resistance eventually crumbles, forcing him to admit he was following orders from a shadow master. The puppeteer pulling his strings also held a lethal blade over his head blackmail regarding some shady financial corruption Cox was involved in. Cox never had a choice. His hands were tied from the start. But before dragging the ultimate confession into the light, Our protagonist demands confirmation on the embezzlement committed behind the Count's back. Once that nugget of truth is verified, Christian accelerates the trial, demanding the identity of the one giving the command. When Cox attempts to seal his lips, the torture ramps up to max intensity, forcing him to scream the name, Sir Ashed. The revelation detonates in the room like a nuclear warhead, leaving the audience paralyzed. It was the second son of the Dark Magic clan, Sir Ashed Daron, pulling the strings all along. Cox realizes that, by snitching, he has signed his own death warrant, but before Sir Ashed's forces can even think about silencing the witness, our main character severs the traitor's head in a single, fluid motion right before Count Khazar's eyes. Before anyone can protest the brutality, Christian clarifies he executed the sinner using the authority borrowed from the Count. The Count demands to know why Cox deserved such an abrupt end. Christian's logic is cold, absolute, and undeniable. If this rat were left drawing breath, the main family would fabricate evidence to sweep the incident under the rug, putting their entire branch on the hit list. That would be the final nail in the coffin for their financial survival. Plus, the truth is out. Everyone witnessed how Ashed tried to drag our boy through the mud. Count Khazar wastes no time, ripping open a dimensional portal instantly. Father and son vanish, stepping straight into the family's secret training grounds, to converse away from prying eyes. The courtroom was far too crowded for this discussion. As the Count sees it, Ashed is only stirring up chaos because he craves the throne. The old man isn't foolish. He knows that backing the true heir is the key to unlimited power. It makes perfect sense that Ashed is trembling in his boots right now. But here is the twist. With the current board state, the Count is betting on the first young lady, since the First Lord is a total failure. And boom, Christian drops the bomb. He nominates himself for the crown, throwing his name into the ring of successors. Khazar nearly laughs in his face, shooting it down as a delusion. But Christian hits him with the ironclad clan laws. Any branch family member can seize the throne, assuming they possess the overwhelming power to back it up. His father, however, dismisses it as a mere technicality, a fantasy that has never occurred in the clan's blood-soaked history. But Christian counters sharply. Ashed clearly sees him as a threat. Otherwise, he wouldn't be trying so desperately to erase his existence. The Count concedes, "Sure, kid. You were a prodigy back in the day. But Ashed is leagues ahead of you right now." Christian refuses to back down. He believes he is already closing that impossible gap. To slam the accelerator on his leveling, he demands his father pull strings to get him a slot in the sacred dark rite occurring in 2 months. The Count raises a skeptical eyebrow. You need to be at least 2-star rank to even look at the rite. That is the least of Christian's worries. He swears on his life he'll hit 2-star in 60 days flat, begging the old man to just sign the paper. Faced with that blazing conviction, the Count has no choice but to fold. Cut to later, where the manor staff is gossiping wildly about the young master's transformation. Word on the street is the Count is personally overseeing his hellish grind. And this isn't mere exercise. It is a routine so brutal that even veteran knights would beg for mercy. We smash cut to our main character, absolutely shredding obstacles with his newly forged sword arts. Watching from the sidelines, even the Count is floored by Christian's learning curve. He creates mastery in days where others take years. But the jaw-dropping moment arrives when Christian unleashes a devastation combo on a training dummy, dismantling it piece by piece. He has remixed the mud swordsmanship with dark blade energy, cooking up a hybrid art capable of slicing cleanly through defenses that normal earth techniques would bounce off. The Count practically has a heart attack witnessing this anomaly. Usually, dual-wielding techniques like that disrupt curse casting, but Christian makes it look effortless. To him, it's barely an inconvenience. Fast forward 15 days, and our boy is face-planted in the dirt, completely drained. He can execute god-tier sword magic, but simple cardio is wrecking him. There is no cheat code for physical endurance. Stamina must be built in the fires of effort. While he wheezes for air, Deputy Commander Mellon spawns out of thin air. She's just dropping by to mock him about their upcoming duel. She is practically counting the seconds until she can pummel him into the ground again. Even though he is grinding, she deems his efforts cute but useless against the massive level gap. She laughs at his fantasy of making her kneel. To anyone else, it's a delusion. But Chris, he doesn't even blink. He is dead set on bending reality to his will. She respects that killing intent. With a nod of acknowledgement, she vanishes into the shadows, challenging him to bring his absolute best, if only for her own amusement. Let's look at the power hierarchy. Mellon is an upper 4-star entity. Every stage is divided into 3 brutal tiers: lower, middle, and upper. Chris is currently sitting at upper 1-star. The stat gap is heaven and earth. But our protagonist has a plan to cheat the system. He is a loaded noble now, and he intends to pay to win. Later, he meets with his evil spirit maid, Marie, and, honestly, she looks breathtaking. Since they are stepping out, she has dressed to kill. A vision of elegance. She clearly thinks this is a romantic date. Christian shuts that fantasy down cold. He didn't invite her. He ordered her to carry the bags, but dealing with Marie's obsessive yandere nature, the man cannot catch a break. He literally begged his father to fire this love-struck spirit and hire a normal human. His dad just pointed at the binding soul contract. The harsh truth? You cannot control a high-tier banshee without the proper paperwork, and the conditions are a nightmare. The fine print is diabolical. To void this contract, he must kiss Marie. But let's snap back to the present danger. Christian rejects her advances again. He is heading into a heavy crowd, and she is strictly uninvited. He is terrified her unstable spiritual energy might accidentally obliterate the innocent locals. That is a deal-breaker. Cue the performance. Marie instantly transforms, from elegant lady to a kicked puppy, guilt-tripping him about being imprisoned indoors for decades. It works. Christian sighs and caves. He allows her to tag along, but places a strict restraining order on her powers. The girl pulls a total 180, sobbing mess 1 second, beaming ray of sunshine the next. As they roll out, she demands the mission objective. His answer? Pure profit. Marie starts flaunting the gold coins he gave her, confused why a wealthy heir needs more cash. Christian corrects her immediately. What he has is pocket change compared to what he needs. And seriously, hide the gold before you get robbed. She tries to guess his endgame. Real estate? Wrong. She is striking out on every pitch. They reach their carriage, only to find a stowaway crashing the party. Naturally, it is his kid brother, Thorn, sitting there with his nose in the air, catching Chris completely off guard. The kid is playing babysitter, terrified Chris might relapse into his old scumbag ways. Then Chris drops the bomb. They are going gambling. The brothers are trying to build that empire portfolio. But hey, they are demons. Gambling isn't a sin here. It is practically a royal decree recommended by the king himself. Thorn insists on shadowing him to keep things honorable. It almost feels like the kid actually cares. Chris teases him about the concern, triggering a hilarious, flustered reaction. Thorn is determined to outperform him. Meanwhile, Chris realizes he is about to have a field day hustling his little brother. They arrive at the glitzy venue, leaving Marie and Thorn stunned by the opulence. To blend in, Chris tosses them masks. A low profile is essential. He slips Marie, a secret side quest that Thorn knows nothing about. As for the kid, just try to keep up. They stride into the belly of the beast. Immediately, the regulars size them up as fresh meat, walking wallets ready to be slaughtered. Chris senses the predatory vibe and challenges Thorn to a wager. Who can stack the most profit in 60 minutes? The loser must accept a nickname chosen by the winner. Chris already has a humiliating, paragraph-long title locked and loaded. He plays Thorn's ego like a fiddle, baiting him into the trap. The kid stomps off, eyes blazing with competitive fire. Chris crushes his first round effortlessly, but he knows how this rigged game operates. The house feeds you crumbs to boost your arrogance, then pulls the rug out from under you. The second you bet everything, you lose. Chris knows the hustle. Thorn is walking in blind. The kid is getting cooked, falling for every bait. Chris rubs salt in the wound, taunting him to tilt his judgment. While they bicker, Chris spots the sharks circling his brother. They smell blood in the water. Annoyed and desperate, Thorn doubles down, ignoring Chris's red flags. But honestly, this is exactly what Chris wanted. Time ticks by, and Thorn is bleeding chips. Meanwhile, Marie, currently invisible, has marked every cheater in the room. Poor Thorn is down a staggering 10,000 gold. Game over. Chris steps away to pay a visit to a certain tycoon. The staff panics at his entrance, but he barks orders to fetch the boss immediately. Enter Grant Hall of the Merchant Guild, oozing fake charm and known as a brilliant businessman. In reality, he runs this crooked casino. Chris demands a private audience, calling him out for fleecing his little brother. The merchant tries to play dumb. He claims he can't possibly micromanage every dealer in the hall. Plausible deniability? Nice try. Marie unveils her terrifying aura, putting the fear of God into him. He hits the floor, begging for his life, promising to pay anything to survive. Checkmate. Chris has his target exactly where he wants him. He slaps the table, demanding 1 million rupees in damages. The merchant nearly chokes on the spot. Since the man lacks that kind of liquidity, Chris generously drops the price to 200,000 rupees instead. The merchant's wallet takes a massive hit, but the deal is sealed. Finally, Chris slides one last request across the table. Smash cut to the treasure vault. We are talking top-tier combat gear, but the real prize is the holy sword, Grunod. This is not just a shiny toy. It is a relic forged from the sacrifice of a hero's soul, a weapon of absolute legend. Even after the hero fell to corruption, demons bowed in worship before it. But now, it is rusting in a junk pile. It is abandoned and gathering dust. But where others see trash, Chris sees god-tier potential. Before leaving, he tosses a pendant to Marie. She had been eyeing it like a hawk. He plays it cool, clarifying, it is just a casual gift, no strings attached. Marie freezes. Since she died and returned as an undead, nobody has treated her like a person. This gesture hits deep. Mission accomplished. Chris signals, it is time to move out. Marie responds with a smile so bright it is almost blinding. She excitedly promises him unlimited blood juice from now on. Which sounds cute until the horror sets in. That is strawberry juice he has been chugging. And yes, it was already spiked. Chris is praying to every god that she is joking. Suddenly, realization strikes. He forgot a minor detail. His brother, cut to Thur, who got robbed down to his last copper. He is holding one single rupee, screaming his lungs out in despair. While Chris was napping, Thur was 5 seconds away from being sold into slavery. He was only saved because someone recognized his noble face. Chris yawns, unimpressed. He reminds Thur that he lost the bet, so he better start using the correct title. Thur's soul leaves his body. The terms of the bet flood back. He has to permanently address this scumbag sibling as Honorable King Emperor Majesty Big Brother. He tries to force the words out through gritted teeth. He is dying of cringe, swallowing his pride while Chris soaks up every second of the torture. Chris warns him to put some respect on the name. Thur storms off, vowing to flip the script and get revenge one day. Spoiler alert, that day is not coming. But Chris knows the truth. In the original timeline, his death is caused by that kid, manipulated by the real villain, Eshid. Eshid is the golden boy, the son of Langam, and the boasted top heir of the dark magic clan. Chris might just be piloting this body for now, but if he wants to secure his spot as heir, a clash with Eshid is inevitable. He knows the bad ending that is waiting for him, so he is dead set on taking Eshid down first. But right now, he needs to secure Marion's loyalty. Back to the Holy Blade Grunod. It has a rough history, and the only reason it is collecting dust is because nobody has the power to tame it. Chris steps up, curious if he is built different. He grabs the hilt and zap. The sword shocks him. It rejects him instantly. It smells the dark magic on him and hates it. Typical behavior for a light attribute weapon. But Chris does not care about the rules. He starts analyzing the mana flow, looking for a back door to hack the sword. Then he switches to brute force. He starts hammering his dark mana into the blade, bullying it into submission. He tells the sword he has got all day to beat the living hell out of it until it learns who the master is. It is absolutely hilarious. The legendary weapon actually starts shivering in fear. Fast forward a few days, Chris pulls up to the training grounds to meet his father, but he spots a surprise guest. Recognition hits him. That is the commander of the Black Shadow Knights, the lethal and beautiful Marion. She is royalty in this world, daughter of the Elder Clan head, master of the Dark Magic Clan, and big sister to his father and Langam. She handles the clan's dirty work. Basically, he is looking at the baddest woman alive in the elite circle. Her presence here is a massive red flag. Count Khazar drops the info on why she is in town. She is looking into the recent situation. Apparently, she thinks Chris was a little too trigger-happy when he decided to end that man's life. If she is aligned with Eshid, Chris is cooked. He decides to play it cocky, remarking that it is funny such a VIP is wasting time on a small fry issue. Marion cuts through the noise. She clarifies she isn't here for the subordinates on orders from above. She is here for Chris. He realizes this might be his golden ticket to finally charm the Elder Clan head. But looking at Marion's cold glare, she clearly thinks he is just an arrogant brat. Trying to challenge a beast like Marion with the stats of a mere 2-star warrior? Marion thinks he is delusional and tries to cancel the fight immediately. But our boy isn't about to wave the white flag. He drops a bombshell. He has full control over the cursed blade, Grunod. Marion is absolutely floored. She turns on her brother, hollering that he is a liar for downplaying his son's abilities. The kid is actually bringing a holy sword to a duel. Chris smirks at her shock, practically daring her to call a foul. He asks if the rulebook forbids high-tier loot, because honestly, he is here to catch a win by any means necessary. Marion fires back with a history lesson. Not even the Elder Clan's leader could tame the legendary blade, Grenade. For a rookie like Chris, he is signing his own death warrant with that level of arrogance. But Chris? He absolutely thrives on the doubt. Time to humble her. He fully unsheathes the blade, proving he is not just holding it, he owns it. Marion squints, wondering if her eyes are deceiving her or if it is just a cheap knockoff. But the second she grabs the hilt's sizzle, holy fire scorches her skin instantly, forcing her to drop it like a hot potato. She watches in horror as Chris casually scoops it back up. No burns, no screams, just silence. He offers no explanation for the mechanics, dropping only one truth bomb. He can achieve the impossible simply because he is a straight-up genius. That flex definitely impresses his father, but the moment is cut short. Melon steps into the arena. She admits taming the sword is a neat party trick, but warns him it will not save his life today. The bell rings. Melon opens with a heavy swing that puts our boy instantly on the defensive. Her specs are just glitchy high. With her limiters off, the pressure is crushing. Chris starts sweating as their steel clashes, realizing the raw power gap is massive. Luckily, Grenade acts as a hard counter to Melon's dark energy. But the real highlight reel? Chris's movement. He is dancing around her strikes, actually pushing her back. The Count is watching his jaw hit the floor. Marian's eyes go wide as she analyzes the fight. Chris is micro-adjusting his demon energy every single second to nullify the Holy Sword's backlash in real time. It is insane multitasking. Melon senses it too. "Are you reading my moves?" she demands. Chris grins, tapping his temple. 20/20 vision, babe. He explains that every sword swing needs a setup. To launch a strike, the body has to move first. A shoulder twitch, a raised arm, it is all a telegraph. Pro or noob, physics is physics. Realizing she cannot win on pure swordplay, Melon decides to fight dirty and flips the script. She casts a binding spell mid-combat, catching Chris off guard just as he was capitalizing on her stance. "Forgot I am a mage too?" She taunts, but the victory lap is short-lived. Ping! Chris cleanses the debuff instantly with a purification artifact. He mentally thanks his dad for the item, even though Count Khazar definitely does not remember buying it. Chris admits he is a master of the five-finger discount. Besides, in his book, good gear equals skill. To prove it, he tosses a sphere into the air. It pops harmlessly above them. Melon looks up. A distracted mistake. The real explosive orb flies in from straight ahead, detaching with a vicious roar and swallowing her in flames. Another souvenir from Chris's shopping spree, but he knows she is a tank. Melon slices through the fire, closing the distance. Chris does not flinch. He blocks and shatters her weapon. With a smile, he breaks her blade. The Count is practically trembling with excitement now. Melon walks out of the smoke, laughing like a total psycho. This is too much fun. The girl has gone full berserker mode. Marian is terrified to see her in this state, wondering how Chris could possibly survive the next hit. But Chris stays ice cold. He lets her wild attack slip past him by a millimeter and counters. In a blink, his blade is pressed against her throat. Checkmate. Melon is shocked. Marian is devastated. And Khazar? He is awestruck. No salt though. Melon bursts out laughing, realizing he orchestrated the whole fight to prove a point. He wants his prize, but he is chill about it. If she does not want to serve him, he will respect it. "Will there be more fights like this?" she asks. Chris nods. "Tons." That seals the deal. He just recruited a powerhouse. Post-fight, we switch to Marian's point of view, who is still hung up on his mana control. She has vivid flashbacks of her old master failing to hold grenade for more than 10 seconds. To wield that, Holy Sword requires constantly hacking the magical wavelengths to bypass the rejection. Doing that in a life-or-death fight? That is impossible. Even the clan head thought only a demon lord or a dragon could pull that off. Or apparently, this talented lunatic controlling dark energy. For most, it is a nightmare. For Chris, it is light work. He bends it to his will effortlessly. Witnessing his combat prowess, Marian starts to believe her father's lifelong dream. It might finally be within reach. Cut to the kitchen, where the vibe shifts completely. We see a massive, terrifying orc chef delicately frosting a strawberry cake. The chef's culinary game is top tier, but he pauses, confused why the young master is slumming it down here in the galley. The mission: baking cookies. Chris has a specific target in mind for a sweet treat. His obsessive maid immediately spirals. Is this for a girlfriend? She is practically green with envy until Chris shuts that theory down fast. The orc offers to whip up the batch, but Chris refuses. This has to be a solo project. Personal touch only. Splat. Mid-sentence. Chris gets tagged by flying strawberry pulp. These orcs are not mixing ingredients. They are absolutely obliterating them. It is so violent. Chris wonders if that red splatter is fruit or actual blood. Scene change. Chris intercepted his great-aunt Marian just moments before her departure. The timing was impeccable, catching her exactly as the carriage was being loaded. The surprise on her face was evident. With a respectful bow, he presented a box wrapped in exquisite silk. Inside lay the handmade cookies he had toiled over. Marian's eyes lit up the moment the lid was lifted. She hadn't expected such a thoughtful parting gift. In the background, Count Khazar finally pieced the puzzle together. That seemingly random question about her favorite snacks earlier? It wasn't random at all. The boy had been orchestrating this moment with the precision of a tactician. When Marian realized Chris had baked these from scratch, her composure cracked. She was visibly floored. One bite, and the rich flavor sealed her fate. It was pure culinary bliss. Chris watched her reaction with the intense focus of a hawk stalking prey. That satisfied sigh was exactly the validation he required. Moved by the gesture, she insisted on returning the favor immediately. "Ask for anything," she declared. Bingo. This was the opening he had been baiting all along. He didn't hesitate to drop the hammer. He didn't want artifacts or gold. He asked her to acknowledge him as true family, not just a distant blood relative. Marian paused, the smile fading slightly. She was sharp enough to sense the subtext beneath his innocent request. Then, the realization clicked. The dark rite ritual was approaching. This wasn't mere sentimentality. He was securing her political backing for the brutal succession war looming on the horizon. However, there was a snag. She couldn't grant that wish. The ironclad laws of the main family stood in the way. complicating his carefully laid plans. "We must remain unbiased in the outcome," she explained heavily. That was the one absolute rule the representatives could not break. Chris immediately pivoted, arguing that he wasn't looking for political leverage. He claimed his only desire was to forge a closer bond with his aunt. Marion struggled to believe this cunning child had no ulterior motives. Yet, he unleashed a performance worthy of an award, feigning total innocence. With his adorable face pleading for connection, Marion found herself disarmed. She couldn't help but admire his bold forwardness. And remembering the taste of those divine cookies, her defenses crumbled. She admitted she had taken a liking to him and requested a steady supply of sweets. Watching their relationship blossom so unexpectedly, Count Khazar felt a surge of emotion. He subtly wiped a proud tear from his eye. Chris played his hand perfectly, teasing his aunt that the flavor might suffer if she didn't offer her guidance when he needed it most. Marion smiled, finally addressing the boy with genuine respect. She offered him a chance to join the elite Black Shadow Knights. She had already accounted for his hidden prowess, having analyzed his battle against Milan. There was a terrifying potential sleeping inside him, perhaps even greater than the elder clan head. But before he could awaken it, his rivals would make his life a living hell. Marion's expression darkened. She was genuinely worried about the treacherous path he was choosing to walk. Chris simply smiled, revealing he was prepared to die if it meant conquering the obstacles ahead. Despite her warning, his confidence in his ultimate victory was unshakable. From her perspective, such arrogance was usually a death sentence. But deep down, she sensed he was an exception to the rule. He might just be telling the truth. That was why she couldn't bring herself to stop him. Marion mounted her horse, looking down to offer one final piece of advice. She warned him gravely against the first young lady, Julian. Though Julian appeared the gentlest of them all, Marion deemed her a threat far greater than even a Sheed. She promised he would understand why soon enough. Chris bowed, taking her warning to heart. The scene closed with Marion riding away, her view of her nephew completely transformed. Back in the solitude of his room, Chris sank into a state of deep contemplation. Both Marion and his father were competent six-star warriors, yet he had heard surprisingly little about their specific roles during the Great War. The Magic Empire had boasted many powerful combatants in those days. He assumed their numbers were enough to give the forces of light serious trouble. However, he wasn't interested in a repeat of history. For now, he was consumed by a singular desire to become stronger. The scene shifted to a meeting with his father, who had summoned him urgently. But the Count was left in utter shock. He couldn't believe Chris had already broken through to the 2-star level. The boy had achieved in a month what took others years. Chris shrugged it off casually, reminding his father that he was simply built differently. Returning to the matter at hand, Chris asked why he had been summoned. Count Khazar revealed that the main house had finally made contact. He had submitted both Thur and Chris as candidates for the sacred dark ritual. Unfortunately, the response was grim. Only Thorn was approved to join the competition. It was the consequence of Chris's terrible reputation. Years of wasting family wealth and engaging in heinous acts had finally caught up to him. The allegations, which were essentially cold, hard facts, hit our protagonist like a sledgehammer to the gut. He felt as though he'd been launched into the ground, his pride shattered. But then, his father voiced unexpected support for his son. Chris stood up, eyes narrowing. He asked if Langham was behind the rejection, but the truth was far more sinister. They realized it was the work of Loen de Baron. Loen was a direct descendant of the main house and the star celebrity of the upcoming ceremony. The reality of the Holy Dark ceremony was brutal. It was a ritual where candidates vied for a special darkness extracted from the dimensional shadow. Because this resource was finite, candidates were forced to brawl for it. Only the strongest would prove their competence and claim the power. However, this power comes at a terrifying cost. The strongest candidates are burdened with the heaviest weight of darkness. Yet, enduring that abyss is the only key to securing the position of the family heir or rising as a prince. In the current state of affairs, Loen's victory is all but assured, positioning him to seize the title of the sixth prince. If that nightmare comes to pass, Chris's ambitions will crumble into dust. The Count insists on negotiating one last time, suggesting they use Marion as a pawn if necessary. But Chris cuts him off instantly, his eyes burning with a confidence that says he is more than capable of handling this storm alone. Khazar grips his son's shoulder, finally acknowledging the boy's monstrous talent. He wants to stand as a shield for him this time, a rare gesture of fatherly warmth. But Chris is no ordinary child. He is a scoundrel with a scheming heart, and a twisted, villainous smirk spreads across his face just to prove a point. With a cold glint in his eyes, the boy asks if Count Timon's household will be attending the ceremony. It turns out the third son of Timon is indeed participating. That lowlife, a piece of trash even worse than Chris's past self, had dared to vote against him. Witnessing his father explode into a protective rage over the insult, Chris realizes that behind the rough exterior, the old man truly loves his children. He tells Khazar to cool his head. He intends to make every single hater choke on their own words. He knows the Timon family is hosting the legendary Ebony Hunt, and he plans to crash their party as a participant. The scene shifts to the shadows as Marion returns to report to her true master. Mission accomplished. She praises Chris with unwavering conviction, shocking the elder clan head, who still remembers the boy as nothing but a hopeless fool. Marion insists that the young master has undergone a complete metamorphosis. Intrigued, the patriarch asks the ultimate question: does the boy possess the qualifications to fulfill his desire? The commander reflects on this obsession. A desperate ambition that burns within him, a wish that requires overturning the laws of fate itself, the desire to shatter the shackles of death using forbidden magic. Though Marion hesitates, she delivers the truth. This boy is the single closest chance he will ever have at grasping that impossible dream. Hearing this, the patriarch smiles, even though the entire family council stands against Chris joining the dark ceremony. Naturally, not even the Lord Patriarch will openly oppose the council's decision. He believes that if the kid is truly worthy, he must find his own way to crush this obstacle. Marion tries to argue for support, but the old fossil silences her with a chilling, authoritative glare. Stunned by his ruthlessness, Marion realizes this is the true nature of the man who leads them. He holds impossible standards and discards the weak without mercy. The elder never expected her to defend the boy so fiercely. Muttering bloodsucker, he summons Simon, the head steward, who has been lurking in the shadows, listening to every word. Simon is assigned a special duty: to shadow the boy with suffocating proximity, observing his every breath until the holy dark ceremony. The steward accepts with a sinister glee, eager to play a little prank on the young master. The head patriarch shoots him a freezing glare, warning the predator not to get too comfortable with his prey. There is a dangerous aura around this bloodsucker that screams distinct lethality. Meanwhile, Marion prays for the child's safety, sensing the storm brewing on the horizon. The scene snaps back to Chris, who is deep in his martial analysis. Reaching the 2-star realm brings new hurdles. The 3-star realm feels like a distant peak that cannot be climbed easily. This is exactly why he needs the ebony. With it, he can devour a massive amount of mana in a short time, courtesy of the Timon family's hunt. Fate is smiling on him. But there is a catch. Simply capturing the beast Karazo isn't enough to secure the prize. A hidden, special condition must be met to truly claim the power of the ebony. Chris steps out of the carriage, confronting the old merchant who stands there empty-handed. The moment the man hesitates, our boy tosses a bag of gold coins at him like trash. But Chris knows the merchant wasn't looking for money. Chris mercilessly dissects him, listing off his illegal smuggling routes and massive tax evasion schemes with surgical precision. These sudden fact checks hit the merchant like physical blows, draining the color from his face, but Chris is willing to turn a blind eye if the merchant cleans up his mess. Finally, he reveals his true target, the legendary gray pill. It is an exquisite, forbidden item found only in the deepest depths of the black market, with a price tag to match. Chris doesn't care about the cost. He signals Marie, and the girl goes berserk, whipping out her torture instruments to persuade the man. It is the most efficient method. The merchant folds instantly, trembling in fear, much to Chris's amusement. On top of that impossible request, Chris demands a high-grade dagger and armor before boarding his carriage like a king. While the old merchant curses him internally, he crumbles in defeat, having no choice but to obey. Marie notes that the young master has one final destination to conquer before returning to the estate. He orders the carriage to halt and steps out into the shadows. Marie watches, eyes narrowing, as he inspects a vial of pink liquid, a potent aphrodisiac. The substance seems almost intimidating in our boy's hands, while Marie silently judges him, wondering what scandalous activities he's planning. Chris denies the silent allegations, but looking at her face, Marie's suspicion meter just hit 100%. With a gaze as intense as a bizarre adventure hero, Chris reveals the truth. The elixir isn't for him, it is for his father, whose vitality has been fading with age. As for the merchant, Chris leans in with a dark aura. He commands the man to take this secret to his grave. Business concluded, Chris returns to the estate to meet his father and brother. He greets Thorn, purposely making him recite his ridiculously long, pompous title. Thorn simply advises him to stay safe during the upcoming ebony hunt. But our boy just smirks, teasing his older brother for being such a worrywart. Their banter is cut short by the Count's booming voice. His father gives a single order. Chris must crush the contestants from the Tyran family. The genius mage bows, promising to return with victory. Amusingly, even Count Khazar isn't over the long title, taking a moment to roast Thorn about it as well. The scene shifts to the Grand Tyran estate, but at the gates, an orange-skinned goblin waiter blocks Chris's path, refusing him entry. Chris learns the truth immediately. Young Lord Alois has issued an exclusive decree specifically forbidding him from setting foot inside. A cold smile plays on Chris's lips. He applies verbal pressure. "Are you suggesting I should find accommodation elsewhere in the capital?" The poor goblin trembles under the weight of his words. Terrified, the servant has no choice but to agree. Chris's own guards step forward to defend his honor, but he raises a hand to stop them. He leans in, his voice dropping an octave, and tell me, who will be paying for this hotel? The servant stammers the answer. They will charge the Tyrion family account. Ah, music to our boy's ears. I think this man is about to bankrupt a noble house. And that is exactly what happens. This mastermind heads straight for the most extravagant hotel in the city. The bill will be a staggering 100,000 rupees. Chris reclines in luxury, more than happy to burn through his enemy's fortune. But as they plot their next move, the luggage trunk flies open. Marie pops out like a jack-in-the-box from hell. Chris flinches, completely caught off guard. He stares at her, wondering what on earth is wrong with this girl. She had stowed away in his luggage, but before he can scold his loyal maid, a roar echoes through the hall. Alois, the third prince, has arrived, screaming about the massive bill. Our boy looks at him with pure boredom. He treats the star of the ebony hunt like a minor inconvenience. Naturally, Chris didn't just pick any hotel. He chose the single most expensive estate possible to send a message. He taunts Alois with a smirk. Why are you angry? You're the one who ordered me to stay elsewhere. Rage explodes in Alois's eyes. He snaps his fingers, unleashing a beast to settle this, right here and now. This isn't ordinary taming. It is the Tiamat style, a forbidden art that dominates beasts through absolute control. The technique uses dark magic to break a creature's mind with fear. It is a complex process, requiring years to instill such deep-seated terror. Regardless, Chris doesn't give a damn. He looks ready to discipline this overgrown house cat. He glances at Marie. Prepare our defense against this scary kitty. Chris arms himself with nothing but a wooden staff, provoking Alois to come at him. The enraged prince commands the beast to tear him apart. I'm not going to lie, Chris barely blocked that lunge, but it took nerves of steel to stand his ground. The impact knocks Chris back, but he lands gracefully, mocking the prince for relying on beasts to fight his battles. He levels his staff at Alois and lays down a condition. If I win, I join the ebony hunt as a guard, not a driver. Alois is too blinded by rage to think straight. He mounts the beast, charging forward to crush Chris in a single, devastating strike. Boom! The beast shatters the stone floor on impact. But the human is gone. Chris appears from behind like a phantom assassin. He unleashes a flurry of strikes with his stick of destruction. Alois eats a face full of wood, his agitation rising with every hit. The beast turns to charge again, but suddenly, it freezes. It sees something. An illusion of death looms over Chris, a towering aura of fear. The beast whimpers, retreating like a scared puppy. Alois, humiliated, has no idea what happened. All Chris did was cast a simple illusion spell, but it worked like a charm on the simple-minded creature. The third prince refuses to admit defeat. He conjures a second beast from the shadows. This time, a warhorse materializes. Chris stands unmoved, lecturing him on the fatal flaw of villains. He lunges forward, flash. A single strike knocks the prince out cold. Chris stands over the unconscious body, finishing his sentence. I'm not going to wait for the entire chapter to end. He really just said this isn't Dragon Ball Z. You don't get 3 episodes to power up, and you certainly aren't Goku turning Super Saiyan 3. With the trash taken out, the indulgent young master heads off to enjoy a nice gambling session. Apparently, this is his idea of resting. Though, if you ask me, it looks more like burning money. The scoundrel is just enjoying the perks of his highborn name. Marie gives him free rein to do whatever the hell he wants, but she has one ironclad rule: absolutely zero alcohol. The poor guy is stuck nursing a ginger ale instead of the strong stuff. Honestly, resisting the booze is a harder battle than the duel he fought earlier. The Tyramon servants are on high alert, watching him like hawks on Arlos's orders. But Chris flips the script, casually inviting the spies to join the party. After all, he just mopped the floor with their master. There is a good chance Arlos will not be waking up from that beating until tomorrow morning. The offer hangs in the air, tempting them, but fear and loyalty to the Tyramon house run deep, so they awkwardly decline. However, the night takes a turn. Chris parties a little too hard and ends up passing out cold. Bro is so completely out of it that even the spies drop their guard. They decide he is no longer a threat, file their report, and clock out for the night. But here's the kicker. This was his plan from the very beginning. Chris played them like a fiddle. The moment the coast is clear, he gears up. He orders Marie to stay behind a command that clearly hurts his loyal creation. And remember that special aphrodisiac he brewed earlier? She still thinks he is using it on himself. Marie covers her face in shame, convinced her master is sneaking out to chase skirts. Chris can only sigh at her wild imagination. Apparently, his maid's mind only operates in the gutter. Scene change. The demonic beasts infest these lands, turning the wilderness into a chaotic hunting ground. Naturally, this is exactly where Chris begins his search. He locates their nest in record time, but a sneer crosses his face. The security here? Absolutely pathetic. Only 2 guards stand watch over the entire perimeter. It is almost insulting. Cloaked in the invisibility magic he picked up from that foolish mate of his, Chris glides past them like a phantom. Not a soul senses his presence. He steps boldly right up to the altar. Chris can feel it in the air. This is the exact point where the accumulated darkness converges and peaks. The atmosphere is heavy, suffocating, and dripping with ominous intent, just as he predicted. However, now comes the real challenge. He needs a method to harvest this dense energy for himself. His mind flashes back to the words of that damn beastman. The objective is twisted but precise. Force the Corazzo to take its own life. He must drive the monster into a corner of absolute terror, where death feels like the only mercy. In the ensuing chaos, a paradox of emotions will erupt. A perfect singularity will arise where light inverts into total darkness. This very mechanic is how Tyron dominates the beasts during their darkness hunts. But Chris's ambition goes deeper. He intends to hijack their secret technique. He will unleash the potent aphrodisiac he procured, sending the Corazzo into an uncontrollable, frenzied rage. And in that moment of vulnerability, he will snatch the darkness for his own ascension. There is just one problem. He lacks the time to fully master the technique. He needs a shortcut, an alternative path to power. A chill suddenly runs down his spine. Chris recoils violently, his instincts screaming of a terrifying presence nearby. Is he not alone? But the shadows are empty. No one is there. Instead, a mysterious force pulls him toward a desolate cave. The moment he steps inside, a wave of pure, concentrated malice crashes over him. This is no ordinary cavern. A high-level dark magic barrier encases the entire area, sealing something dreadful within. His eyes widen in disbelief. Standing before him is a Tyran reality, the Rift of Gehenna, the legendary domain of demons and fiends, a realm of absolute nightmares. It is a bridge connecting the abyss to the human world. And staring at it, a wicked idea begins to form in Chris's mind. He doesn't need to hunt the beast. He can lure it. He will use the aphrodisiac as bait to drag the Corazzo straight into the jaws of this rift. The plan is flawless. Victory is all but assured. But just as he turns to depart, a shadow emerges from nothingness. The ancient bloodsucker has arrived. He watches the young master with a gaze full of intrigue. The boy has certainly exceeded expectations. From the duel with Arlos to the ruthless manipulation of his own servants, Simon has seen it all. And now, the child is weaving yet another elaborate web of deceit. A twisted smile plays on the Grand Steward's lips. This is going to be entertaining. He cannot resist the urge to toy with such a promising pawn. Simon makes his move. He reaches out, his hand grasping the very fabric of the Gehenna rift. The dimensional tear weeps blood at his touch, and a voice from the abyss screeches his name, cursing him as the betrayer. In a stunning turn of events, Simon finally plays his hand. The day of the great hunt has arrived, with Arlos stepping forward to uphold the honor of his family's banner. Chris wastes no time provoking him, trash-talking Arlos for acting high and mighty when the memory of his recent defeat is still fresh. Arlos bites back instantly, mocking Chris for dragging along a holy sword that everyone knows is just a useless piece of scrap. But Chris flashes a dangerous grin, offering to test the weapon's durability on Arlos's face. The banter ends abruptly when the third prince commands the team to lure the beast Corazzo toward the altar. He barks commands for the royal guards and mages to follow his lead immediately. While the others move, Chris's eyes dart to a suspicious bat, observing them from the shadows. He plays along, agreeing to help the spoiled prince before heading to the altar to lie in wait. The mage, disgusted by his casual attitude, snaps at him to just sit on the sidelines if he intends to be a nuisance. Chris accepts the offer with a cheerful grin and walks off, leaving the mage fuming in anger. Arlos intervenes, forcing the team to lock in and focus on the hunt. They relegate Chris to guarding the flag like a common thug, unaware that for him, this is the easiest assignment in the world. For now, Chris basks in the thrill of victory, knowing the tides of fate are flowing exactly as he commanded. He has already secured the dagger and the orb from Grant. Just as planned, he watches from the shadows, observing Arlos and his mage as they prepare for their own hunt. He senses the approach of Corazzo, the beady-eyed beast finally making its grand entrance. At first glance, you might mistake this deadly creature for a harmless, adorable animal. Arlos stands ready, instantly unleashing a complex magic ritual to bind the beast to his will. But thanks to Chris's secret tampering, the ritual fails catastrophically. Instead of submission, Corazzo explodes with uncontrollable rage. The third prince never saw it coming and gets brutally slapped into the dirt. The mage screams in panic, rushing to check on his fallen master. To make matters worse, a lethal poison begins to spread, forcing the mages to erect a defensive barrier in a heartbeat. Watching the chaos from afar, Chris knows their efforts are futile. After all, he was the one who drove the beast into a frenzy using a potent aphrodisiac. Thankfully, Arlos came prepared with the antidote. Yet, even the prince realizes they are facing a calamity far beyond their calculations. The guards charge in to drive the creature back. But let's be real. Mere soldiers are useless against a titanic, enraged bird that scatters them like leaves in a storm. Arlos braces for a bone-crushing impact. But suddenly, Chris flashes in. He blocks the attack while simultaneously pinning Arlos to the ground with savage force. He looks down at the prince, calling him pathetic, and offers salvation on one condition: Arlos must address him as Big Brother. Arlos resists the humiliation until Chris threatens to step aside and let the beast finish its meal. The bodyguards are decimated, and the barriers are shattering like glass. Swallowing his massive pride, Arlos finally begs the scoundrel for help. Delighted by those sweet words, Chris smirks and effortlessly swipes the colossal creature away with a single swing of his weapon. He unleashes a binding spell, shocking Arlos with his sudden mastery of the arts. However, in reality, this is merely a mockery of the original technique. It is nothing more than a mid-level trick. The beast Carazo resists, but Chris dominates it with exceptional control. In that moment, Arlos realizes the truth. Chris played him for a fool to seize the beast for himself. He leads Carazo all the way to the secret cave of Gehenna. The aura of the place strikes the fear of death into the beast, forcing it into the legendary golden state Chris was waiting for. Seizing the opportunity, Chris plunges his blade into the creature's heart. By the time Arlos and his men catch up, the deed is already done. The third prince, fearing for their safety, insists they evacuate immediately. But Chris has no intention of fleeing. Instead, he displays the ashen orb he ripped from the beast. Clearly, this prize was not what they were expecting. The mage roars in fury at the intervention, but Arlos does a complete 180, bowing his head to thank our boy for saving his subordinates' lives. After all, without Chris, they would have met a grim and bloody end. It almost makes Chris feel guilty, especially since he secretly sabotaged the hunt and swapped the real core with a fake. Still, Chris refuses to fold, reminding Arlos of their deal. He must address him as senior brother from now on. A stinging tease to someone years his senior, but right in the middle of their banter, a crushing, overwhelming pressure descends upon them. Two terrifying eyes glare down from the darkness. Chris instantly knows they have stepped into hell. The moment he spots the demon of Gehenna, a towering monstrosity reveals its nightmarish face. Surprisingly, Arlos jumps to the front, screaming for our boy to run while he still can. I am starting to like him a lot more. That is a noble change of heart. Spotting a damned bat spying on them, Chris launches his blade with surgical precision, severing the connection to Simon. The mastermind cannot believe a mere child detected his magic. With his eyes destroyed, Simon is blind to the danger, helpless even with his bloodline arts. Simon realizes he must rush to the scene, or everyone faces total annihilation. Back in the cave, Chris cold-bloodedly states that he despises being watched. The demon laughs, taking the boy's defiance for a death wish. Recalling the wars of the Age of Ruin, Chris estimates this monster is at least a 5-star calamity. He cannot defeat this ugly Sukuna normally, but he has a plan. Arlos screams at him for wasting magic power, and since the sleeping spell failed, Chris deploys the old-school method, punching the daylights out of the prince to knock him cold. With the prince unconscious, the demon muses that a sacrifice has been prepared. He is even willing to spare Chris in exchange for the tribute. Our boy simply tells the monster he yaps too much and whips out the holy sword grenade. The demon is intrigued but scoffs, believing it useless in the hands of a human who cannot wield it. He unleashes his first devastating strike, forcing Chris to catch the blow head-on. Yet, despite his overflowing confidence, reality hits him hard. The enemy's attack overwhelms his defenses, crushing his lungs until he coughs up a spray of crimson blood. The situation has turned desperate. Seeing the boy struggle, the demon offers a twisted mercy, a chance to survive if he agrees to sacrifice his companions. But Chris refuses to play by their rules. Proving he is a born savage, he spits directly into the demon's face, the ultimate insult, saying go to hell without uttering a single word. Chris shatters his restraints. He unleashes the power of ebony, coating his blade in a blinding, golden radiance. The demon of Gehenna freezes in shock. How can a mere human, a creature of darkness, wield the holy light? It defies all logic. Chris grins, reveling in the fact that he has the monster trembling. Terrified, the demon gathers every ounce of its energy to annihilate the boy where he stands. But our boy is faster. With a single catastrophic swing, his blade cleaves through the sphere of darkness and severs the demon's body in two. The battle is won, but the cost is severe. Chris realizes too late that his current vessel is far too weak to handle such divine power. Darkness claims his vision as he collapses. In his fading consciousness, he recalls the legendary technique from his past life, the Dead Sea Flash. It was a move inspired by a miracle, a singular, piercing ray of light that defied the eternal gloom hovering above the Dead Sea. In that past life, his body had been unworthy of House Mir's legacy. Yet, one man had believed in him. A true brother-in-arms who knew Chris would one day become the light that saved their world. Meanwhile, from the shadows, a presence watches the aftermath. It is Mafina, a higher being of darkness. As the first seed of the 7 circles of Gehenna, she is intrigued by this boy's potential. Back at the estate, our hero finally awakens from a 2-day coma. His joints creak with exhaustion, but he is alive. More importantly, the power of darkness he stole is now safely within him. But a memory nags at him. He recalls hearing Mafina's voice just before he blacked out, realizing he may have attracted the gaze of a dangerous predator. In this world, talented demons are often scouted. High-ranking devils groom them, offering dark blessings to accelerate their growth. But Chris scoffs at the idea. Relying on a master is a path for the weak, for losers who cannot carve their own destiny. Or at least, that is the arrogant philosophy of our protagonist. He dismisses Mafina, assuming someone from the 7th circle can't be that big of a deal. Just then, Count Tiramon enters the room, looking far more imposing than his disappointing son. To everyone's shock, the Count has come personally. Chris attempts to rise and show respect, but the Lord insists he remain in bed. He updates Chris on the aftermath. An investigation team had swept the area the previous day. They discovered traces of an external mage's tampering. Luckily for the estate, the demon had been mysteriously recalled before it could finish the job. It was a narrow escape from total annihilation. Chris notes with relief that his role in slaying the demon remains a secret after all. Who would believe a child did it? Then, the mood shifts. Lord Tiramon bows his head, apologizing for treating Chris like a scoundrel during their first meeting. But he doesn't stop there. He expresses his deepest gratitude, declaring Chris a benefactor of their house. Chris plays the humble hero, pretending he only acted out of duty and justice. It is a masterclass in manipulation. Though, deep down, even he feels a slight twinge of guilt for gaslighting the honest nobleman. Moved by the boy's noble spirit, Tiramon offers to grant him a favor. Seizing the opportunity, Chris drops a bombshell. He wants House Tiramon to reconcile with House Khazar. The request hits the room like a thunderclap. Chris argues that cooperation is the only path forward. Why waste strength fighting each other when they could rule together? He proposes a rivalry with the prince, not as enemies, but as competitors sharpening each other for a brighter future. Lord Tiramon falls silent, deep in thought, but Chris presses the advantage. He reminds them that the feud only exists because the main house engineered it to weaken them both. It is a classic strategy of control. If the branch families were to unite, their combined power would rival the main family itself. That is why they were turned against one another. To keep them subservient. Tiramon's eyes widen. Are you suggesting rebellion? Such words from a child could lead to execution. Chris immediately denies the treasonous claim. Not rebellion, he explains smoothly, simply refusing to be pawns on someone else's chessboard. The Lord is impressed by the boy's terrifying political insight. He agrees to the terms, promising to reach out to Count Khazar for a truce. Everything is proceeding exactly as Chris predicted. He needs strong allies to survive the coming age of ruin. Suddenly, Tiramon smacks his silent son, scolding him for not speaking up during such a crucial moment. Shamed, Arlo steps forward. He hands over the ashen shard, the loot from the battle. He had guarded it jealously while Chris was unconscious. Chris accepts it with a smirk, teasing the boy for his unexpected loyalty. Watching the boys banter, the Count bursts into laughter. He presents one final reward from his own treasury. It is a summoning stone, a treasure capable of calling forth a beast up to tier 4, a super rare item that even Chris covets. Furthermore, Tiramon makes a vow. He will report to the Dark Ceremony and personally vouch for the boy's incredible potential. Things are going perfectly according to plan for the protagonist. As the father and son exit the room, Chris finally earns a moment of solitary peace. But rest is a luxury he cannot yet afford. Chris shifts his gaze to the shadows, calling out the rat that has been spying on him this whole time. From the darkness steps Simon, the bloodsucker, wearing a look of sheer delight. He is genuinely shocked. How did a mere boy detect him, when even Lord Tiramon remained oblivious? This is no ordinary spy. He is the chief steward of the Dark Mage clan, and one of Lord Noah's most elite subordinates. He has been dying to exchange a few words. Chris's mind races, instantly recognizing the dangerous man before him. This bastard is none other than the master of the notorious Blood Shadow Corps. Let's talk about the Blood Shadow Corps for a moment. They are a collective of madmen who spread terror and slaughter like a plague, indifferent to the chaos they leave in their wake. They fear nothing and no one. Whether it is the mighty Empire or the sanctimonious Light faction, all are prey in their eyes. And their leader? A monster of legend. An 8-star demon who will ascend to the 9-star realm during the Age of Ruin event, claiming the throne as the 10th Demon King. That future tyrant is the very reason death constantly stalks them. And Simon? He happens to be that Demon King's legitimate blood son. Simon's eyes gleam with dangerous curiosity. He is impressed by the young master's performance, casually revealing that he knows Chris annihilated a demon single-handedly. The accusation hits hard. Chris had destroyed the surveillance bat, yet somehow, this man knows exactly what transpired in that cave. Chris maintains his composure, attempting to play the fool, but the sharp-witted steward is not so easily deceived. He recalls inspecting the cave and finding absolute emptiness, not even a trace of the demon remained. If it were reverse summoning, residue would linger. The total absence of energy means only one thing. Chris delivered the final, obliterating blow. The evidence is undeniable. The only mystery keeping Simon awake at night is how. How was he able to wipe a demon from existence? Simon threatens to report this anomaly to his master, but Chris bites back instantly. He refuses to reveal his trump card, no matter how much the steward pries. He stares the bloodsucker down, making it clear he will not expose his secrets just to appease the elder clan head. Watching the young boy stand his ground triggers something in Simon. He sees not a child, but a beast hiding its claws, waiting for the perfect kill. The amusement in Simon's eyes only grows. But then, Chris flips the script. You see, there is no distinctive difference between total erasure and reverse summoning to the naked eye. That is why Tyrion was clueless. Yet Simon, for some reason, was absolutely certain that full erasure was used. Chris smiles coldly. How could he possibly know that? The protagonist drops the bombshell. Simon knows because he was the one who summoned the demon in the first place. Now, Chris muses, perhaps he should be the one reporting the truth? After all, that little stunt endangered the heirs of multiple noble families. A scandal like that would be devastating. Cornered and outsmarted, Simon bows, accepting full responsibility. But Chris doesn't want a report. He wants leverage. He decides to keep the chief steward in his debt for the long game. The bloodsucker grins, realizing a deal has been struck. He accepts this act of mercy with glee before vanishing into thin air, eager for their next encounter. As the presence fades, Chris's expression darkens. He understands that this guy is one of the main variables for the Age of Ruin event. To survive the dark future, Chris must keep this dangerous man close. He needs Simon's power to alter the catastrophe that awaits. I do not know about you guys, but I am absolutely loving how the main character manipulates the board to fulfill his grand design. Every move is calculated. With the confrontation over, Marie finishes the preparations. It is time to return to the main estate, but their departure is interrupted. Aloise stands waiting, asking if they are already leaving. Chris immediately corrects him. Despite being 2 years younger than the third prince, he demands the respect of his proper title. However, Aloise isn't here for pleasantries. Since Chris insisted on calling them family, the prince feels obligated to deliver a crucial warning. He warns Chris to watch his back against Lauren's schemes. That man violently opposed Chris's participation in the ceremony, citing his weak status as a mere 2-star mage. The odds are stacked against him. The main family holds the supreme elixirs, the ultimate techniques, and the direct blessings of the demons. In short, if Chris walks into that ceremony unprepared, he will be utterly destroyed by their hands. But the genius doesn't flinch. Instead, he offers a counter-warning to Aloise. Do not participate in the upcoming ceremony. It is for his own good. Rage flares in Aloise's eyes. He interprets this as arrogance, believing the scoundrel intends to hoard all the dark magic for himself. Furthermore, Chris makes a cold declaration. No matter who stands before him in the dark ceremony, he will crush them beneath his heel. Discussion over. He signals Marie to move out, leaving Aloise behind with that final, ominous warning echoing in the air. Back at the house of Count Khazar, Thorn is bewildered. His brother has only just returned, yet he is already rushing off to train. Chris demands absolute solitude until the dark ceremony ritual begins. But Thorn isn't letting him go that easily, and chases after him. Still shouting that ridiculously long title, Thorn demands a duel to uphold their promise. Chris pauses, sensing the energy. Thorn has reached the mid-2-star level, impressive growth. However, Chris has no time for games. His own training awaits. Suddenly, a memory strikes Chris. His brother intends to join the dangerous dark rite ceremony. He tells Thorn to wait. The duel must happen after his training is complete, promising no further delays. Reluctantly agreeing, the boy leaves, radiating sheer stubbornness. It reminds Chris of a familiar face from his past life. Alone in his chambers, he calculates the time. He has exactly 1 month before the ritual begins. Without hesitation, he bites into the ebony orb. A bitter taste floods his mouth as he collapses onto the bed. The dark energy is far more chaotic than expected. Yet, amidst the storm, he senses a miraculous glimmer of light. Perhaps the beast's emotions imprinted on the core. It explains exactly why demons struggle to absorb this volatile power. But the risks mean nothing. As long as he can fuse with the light force, he will endure. Demons usually squander this energy, but Chris refuses to let such a precious resource fade away. He draws every drop into his light core. The power reshapes his very essence from the inside out. His eyes snap shut as the fusion completes. Meanwhile, Lady Idle receives a report on the Ebony Hunt investigation. Her gaze has been fixed on one target, Chris. He survived the demon encounter against all odds. 2 weeks later, Thorn storms Chris's room, demanding the duel he was promised. But the moment his little brother steps inside, he freezes. The change in Christian's aura is undeniable. The older brother smirks, amused that Thorn arrived so early just to get beaten. Thorn is struck speechless. Christian's dominating presence has grown leagues beyond what it was mere weeks ago. But a promise is a promise. If Thorn is this desperate for a thrashing, Christian will happily oblige. However, there is a condition. If Thorn loses, he must abandon the sacred dark rite. That competition is a slaughterhouse. Weaklings have no place there. Enraged by the insult, Thorn instantly draws his blade. Since the boy is blind to his concern, Christian decides to pound the lesson into him physically. Thorn charges with full confidence, but the result is a brutal defeat that leaves him completely incapacitated. The healers declare he needs 2 weeks of bed rest. He is effectively ruled out of this year's rite. Christian requests a private moment with Thorn. The Count nods, leaving the brothers alone to talk. Thorn pouts like a child, despite asking for the fight. He demands to know why his brother hates seeing him grow stronger. To him, it feels like Christian only exists to mock him and belittle his achievements. And now, he has crossed the line, deliberately injuring him just to ruin his chances at the sacred dark rite. Seeing tears welling up in the boy's eyes, Christian realizes he must clarify the misunderstanding. His harshness was calculated to accelerate Thorn's growth. Competing in the rite this year would have been a fatal mistake. He warns that Thorn would only lose his chance to obtain power forever. Decisive action was necessary for such a stubborn kid. More importantly, pure dark energy is not suited for Thorn. His true potential lies with gray dark energy instead. Just as light divides into types, darkness has variants. While pure dark energy is considered the supreme attribute, gray dark energy ranks just below it. It is the perfect fuel for cultivating curse magic. Thorn must have noticed it himself. He advances far faster in curse magic than he ever did in swordsmanship. Christian cannot reveal that he saw Thorn become a legendary curse magician in a past future. So, he invents a cover story. He claims he sensed the affinity during their duel because he was fighting with full intent. Absorbing pure dark energy before mastering the gray variant would only cripple his long-term growth. While higher attributes offer power, for Thorn specifically, the unique properties would become a shackle, slowing his cultivation to a painful crawl. Skipping this year was the only strategic move. This is Christian's sincere guidance, rooting for his brother's ultimate success. Thorn feels the truth in those words. Then, Christian retrieves an ash pill from his pocket and tosses it to him. It is a priceless treasure. Christian obtained it by outsmarting a scammer, so he parts with it easily. Besides, he has already consumed something far superior. Thorn looks at the pill, visibly moved by the gesture. He realizes he was wrong. Christian wasn't just being a tyrant without cause. Yet, a bitter question remains. If he could change, why was he such a monster when their mother lay dying? Why did she have to suffer such heartache? Even though his soul hadn't fully taken the wheel yet, the guilt lingered like a shadow. He was a stranger in his own skin back then, oblivious to the truth. Days later, luxury carriages flooded the Deer family cathedral. Stepping into the light from one of them was the protagonist himself, Christian van Baron Khazar. A long road. Indeed, he needed to stretch his limbs. He knew the truth. The main family locked the warp gates out of pure spite. Let them play their games. Once he ascends the throne of the clan head, those senile fools will pay the ultimate price. Destination reached. Marie could finally manifest freely. In her mind, this was a romantic getaway, hearts racing even if banshees lacked the organ to beat. Since the pact bound their very souls, she was his only permitted shadow. His boot hit the pavement, and silence swept the crowd. He became the center of their universe. Marie whispered praises of his renown, though it sounded suspiciously like sarcasm. Then, shockwaves rippled through the dark candidates. The head butler himself had come to welcome the trash of Khazar. Simon's gaze pierced him, assessing the terrifying growth achieved in mere weeks. The vampiric servant bowed low. He was here on orders from the apex of the family, the elder clan head. The old master demanded an audience with the young fiend stirring up the world. Simon noted the boy's calm. Christian didn't flinch. He walked straight to the private sanctum as if he owned it. Inside, power coalesced. Aunt Marion stood guard, but the presence beside her, Duke Baron. Their influence could crush empires. The moment the old monster's eyes locked onto him, the heir turned to lead. Suffocation. It felt like a deity pressing a thumb against an insignificant ant. The Duke flooded the room with pure dark energy, a test meant to break a novice. But Christian was no ordinary novice. He might tremble, but he would never kneel. Gritting his teeth against the crushing aura, he offered a flawless salute to Duke Baron, the great sovereign of the dark magic clan. Surprised? The Duke asked. Expected, Christian replied without hesitation. He knew the higher-ups couldn't ignore a star burning this bright forever. The answer pleased the monster. Marion and Simon sang his praises, but the old tiger remained wary. Age had taught him that rapid growth often led to early rot. Time was the only true judge. Would Christian be a sapling that withered the moment it touched the sun? He didn't deny the risk. Instead, he doubled down. I won't just be a tree, he declared. I will become a world-shadowing abnormality, a force of nature that dwarfs the entire forest. He guaranteed satisfaction. The elder clan head smiled, a heavy weight placed on young shoulders. Upon dismissal, Christian bowed with the grace of a true noble. The door clicked shut. Well? Marion asked. The Duke admitted the boy was a monster who shattered his expectations, but he feared the path ahead. Great talent often attracts great tragedy, especially now, as bloody winds gathered over the magic empire. Yet, for the first time in years, hope pumped through the old man's veins. This Khazar child might be the key to his lifelong ambition. Night fell. The banquet for the sacred dark rites eve commenced. The announcer's voice boomed. Count Khazar's eldest son, Christian van Baron Khazar. He stepped in, radiating royalty. The whispers were vicious. The topic? His private meeting with the elder head. A boy toy? They sneered. Christian smirked, taking the slander as a compliment to his devastating good looks. It didn't help that Marie was floating there, fueling his narcissism. His eyes scanned for the prize, booze. Finally, real liquor, not the weak stuff from back home. But the servers blocked his path like iron walls. Underage, they cited, ignoring the fact that half these kids had blood on their hands. Defeated, he grabbed a ginger ale. What good were killer friends if they followed the law? Christian wallowed in his misery. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned. The next batch of guests had arrived. The gates groaned open, and an air of true nobility crushed the room. 4 figures draped in divine fabrics made the world freeze. Leading the pack, the second young lord, Ashed Debaran. First to arrive was the eldest daughter, Julian Diran. Right on her heels came the second young lady, Jupion Diran. And finally, the third young lord, Isaac Diran. Yet, the shadows whispered, disappointed that the notorious first young lord the madman was nowhere to be seen. Christian braced himself. He waited for Eched to snap, to lash out at the man who had dragged his reputation through the mud in court. But Eched delivered the cruelest insult imaginable. Silence. He walked right past Christian, like he was nothing more than air. The bastard didn't even acknowledge his existence. It was a cold declaration. To a leading successor, Christian was beneath notice, no better than a bug beneath his boot. However, as the First Lady Julian passed by, Christian felt her gaze linger on him just a second too long. Aunt Marion had warned him about her, a cryptic caution. Yet, his senses picked up nothing strange. She felt normal, no matter. He would unravel her secrets later. For today, he had gathered enough intel on his enemies. He turned to leave, ready to prepare for the coming storm. But his path was blocked by a butler, a summoner serving a certain young master. The moment the master's name was spoken, Christian's expression darkened. The servant sneered. He had the audacity to imply that trash had sneaked into the banquet ahead of the sacred dark rite. He claimed to be worried that a weakling might cause an accident and stain the glorious reputation of the Dark Clan. Subtlety wasn't this old man's strong suit. The butler, 4, was practically screaming that Christian was garbage. And he didn't even try to hide the puppet master. Up on the balcony, the curly-haired brat, young Master Lowen, stood smirking. Christian sighed. This level of provocation was frankly boring. If you want to be a villain, at least do your own dirty work. Whatever. He would teach them a proper lesson during the trials tomorrow. But for now, let's have some fun. He decided to humble this arrogant summoner, just for the entertainment. He didn't even reach for a weapon. He simply stood there, daring 4 to show him what he could do. Christian didn't need a wand to discipline a clown. The air grew frigid. The entire banquet hall froze, glasses halfway to lips, sensing the sudden killing intent. In the corner, the first young lady watched, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. In a heartbeat, the room erupted in shock. 4 was on his knees, screaming, desperately trying to shield himself from his own spirits. And amidst the chaos, Christian was simply relaxing. He sat upon one ghost like a throne, while 2 others served him like loyal butlers. The crowd was paralyzed. Such dominance had never been seen before. 4 had tried to ambush him with those spirits. He wanted them to tear Christian apart, but they betrayed their master in an instant. With a mere flick of his wrist, Christian hijacked the summon. It was as if he had rewritten the laws of magic themselves. He even caught Lowen trying to interfere with a cheap spell. But honestly, it was pathetic. The curly-haired heir looked ready to explode. Humiliation burned his face. Getting owned like this was a disaster for the clan's future leader. If he had a problem, he should have stepped into the ring himself. Hiding behind servants was weak. Lone, shameless to the core, shouted that he had nothing to do with it, but the silence in the room said otherwise. His lackey lay broken on the floor, begging for salvation that wouldn't come. Christian yawned. The circus act was over. He would deal with the rest at the sacred dark rite. That cowardly brat was in for a rude awakening tomorrow. Fast forward to dawn. The day of the sacred dark rite had arrived. The air was heavy with killing intent. Yet Christian stood there, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed and regretted waking up. Aloy Tiraman was there too. He had ignored Christian's warning to stay away. You couldn't fault the guy for having guts. The prestige of the rite was a siren song no warrior could resist. Finally, the last candidate made his entrance. It was Loen, strutting in and acting tough, desperate to mask yesterday's defeat. Christian's fingers twitched. He was itching to crush that ego. With the candidates assembled, a small figure stepped forward. Sebastian, vice butler of the main house, their guide to the abyss. He slammed his staff against the ground. Crack. Reality itself seemed to shatter. The floor opened up, revealing an endless staircase spiraling into the void. A one-way ticket to hell. An underground exam? No one expected this. But Christian's eyes narrowed. This was high-level illusion magic warping the space. He was the only one who saw the truth. Sebastian began to descend, calm as a monk on a morning walk. Terrified, the candidates scrambled after him. No one wanted to be left alone in that encroaching darkness. Down they went, into the hall of recursion. Sebastian set a brutal pace. The participants gasped for air, their stamina draining rapidly. The terrain was a nightmare. Steep slopes and twisting paths designed to break the weak. Even Loen, the heir tipped for victory, is drowning in exhaustion. But matters are about to get worse. Sebastian is radiating that terrifying hunter exam pressure. The man looks like a machine built to run for eternity. Then, he raises the stakes mercilessly. Fall behind now. And the floor simply ceases to exist. Instantly, screams tear through the air. Two stragglers at the rear lose their footing as the ground vanishes, sending them plummeting into the dark abyss below. The remaining heirs don't even have a second to process the horror. Sebastian shifts gears, exploding from a casual jog into a full-blown sprint. His short legs move like pistons, and the pack begins to thin out at a terrifying rate. Loen glances back, sneering at the failures, his ego soaring above the weaklings. But then, a true predator appears. The handsome devil Christian is locked in right behind him. The guy is an absolute monster. He is not even breaking a sweat while the rest of the elite are running on fumes. As they enter the home stretch, Christian decides to shatter Loen's fragile ego. He mocks the so-called genius for being all bark and no bite while gasping for oxygen. For a direct heir, Loen is moving like a glitches NPC right now. All those countless resources poured into him since birth, and this is the peak of his ability? In Christian's eyes, these noble kids are utter fools, destroying their own bodies. They are running in circles inside a loser's illusion. They should be using their brains to break the spell, not their legs. It is the height of stupidity to exhaust yourself in a mental trap. Christian's stamina bar hasn't dropped by a single pixel. All he did was tweak one simple spell formula. Now, he walks through this hellscape as an invincible entity. Sebastian's sharp eyes catch the anomaly. He notes the only participant who saw through the cheap tricks of this culling process. It seems the higher-ups were correct. They had already warned him about the terrifying potential of the young master from the Khazar family. Finally, the 4 surviving elites reach the finish line. 3 of them collapse, gasping for life, while Christian chills like a villain after a tea break. Alois cannot fathom how a human could be unscathed after that death march. To mess with his head, Christian advises Alois to simply hit the gym more often. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A dancing light manifests, and a voice dripping with unsettling power demands their attention. The entity reveals the truth. This terrifying ground contains the purest concentration of dark energy in existence, known as the sacred darkness. The light takes form, revealing a bewitching woman that could command empires with a glance. This is Ryu, the absolute manager of the sacred ground. Today, these young masters and mistresses will attempt the impossible. They must seize the great pure darkness, just as the legendary third-ranked Demon King once did. He was the Dark Destroyer, the progenitor of the Dark Magic clan. Raising her hand, Ryu traces winding lines of mystical light across the floor. However, reality is cruel. There is not enough darkness to share among 4 heirs. Their worthiness will be tested by blood. Demon beasts wait in each separate pathway. They must traverse a random path, and only the first to arrive claims the ultimate prize. But this raises a deadly question. What happens if unforeseen mishaps occur between competitors during the chaos? Ryu smiles coldly. She clarifies that conflicts are not grounds for disqualification in this world. Since everyone takes a different path, the chances of a clash are slim to none. But on the off chance a fight breaks out, a full-on brawl is discouraged. Not out of morality, but efficiency. The more time you waste bickering, the more advantage you give to your rivals. Ryu's final advice for success is simple yet chilling. Focus entirely on your own survival. After a count of 5, she wishes them fortune and signals the start of the death race. Sebastian turns to his coworker to bet some blood on the winner, but Ryu ignores him completely. She vanishes into thin air. The seemingly unshakable vice butler is left fuming at the disrespect. Down one of the dark corridors, Lowen encounters his first hurdle. A pack of flame-spitting, four-eyed wolves blocks his path. They howl with bloodlust and lunge at the curly-headed freak. Lowen's eyes flash. Coating his hand with concentrated dark energy, he faces the pack head-on. In seconds, he unleashes a symphony of violence. His moves target each wolf's fatal point with surgical precision. He kills every single one in a single hit. He correctly gauged that these pups are low-ranking 2-star magic creatures at best. They are practically cannon fodder against an upper 2-star fiend like Lowen. Currently, he is more interested in his twisted fantasy. He imagines Christian struggling and dying on the path he took. By the rules, each path should be identical for fairness. However, the curly-headed snake bribed a mage to rig the game. He filled Christian's path with vastly stronger demon beasts. The bastard of Khazar will surely face impossible odds. His tragic death will look like nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Since any death during the sacred dark rite is ruled as an unavoidable casualty, Lowen's murder plot is ironclad. A few minutes later, Lowen bursts through the door of the sacred ground. Seeing the empty room, he throws his hands up to celebrate his victory. But in his arrogance, he fails to notice the shadow standing near the door. Christian has been lounging here for ages. He has been waiting for Lowen's slow self to arrive, bored out of his mind. Lowen freezes, his brain unable to process the impossible. He knows his sabotage should have worked perfectly. In his shock, he accidentally blurts out the truth. He screams that Christian's path should have been crawling with elite monsters. Lowen really is just a stupid kid who can't keep his own villainous plot a secret. Christian had already sensed the game was rigged against him from the start. Now, hearing the culprit admit it, that was just music to his ears. Lauren stood tall, radiating that sickening arrogance typical of the main family bloodline. He looked down on Christian like a king observing a peasant. But that main character syndrome wouldn't save him here. He actually whined that clashing with competitors during the trial was a taboo. Yet, hypocrisy stained his words as dark energy crackled around his fists. Abandoning honor for a dirty strike, he lunged. A haymaker aimed to take Christian's head off. Christian leaned back effortlessly, letting the lethal blow whistle past his nose. His eyes remained wide open, dissecting the prick's martial arts instantly. He analyzed the flow of mana in a split second. It was a combat technique designed to detonate potent magic power on impact. At point-blank range, that energy wasn't just for damage. It was meant to shatter bones and snap an opponent's joints, like dry twigs. When the first strike failed, Lauren lost his cool. He unleashed a storm of erratic punches, pushing his speed to the absolute breaking point. But Christian moved like a phantom, slipping through the barrage with terrifying ease. Finally, the so-called genius of the Khazar family exposed a fatal flaw. Like the amateur he was, Lauren took the bait hook, line, and sinker. Christian smirked, his trash talk slicing deeper than any blade. He lunged at the false opening, sealing his fate. Christian's hand snapped out like a viper, seizing the arm in an iron grip. In a heartbeat, the young master's own momentum was turned against him. Christian twisted, applying ruthless pressure to the captured limb. A cruel smile danced on Christian's lips. "You might want to bite your tongue," he whispered. "The next few minutes are going to be pure hell." The torque increased until a sickening crunch echoed through the hall. Outside the dark sacred ground, a guttural scream of pure agony shattered the silence. Hours drifted by in the darkness. Finally, the last of the top four stumbled in, gasping for air. He was drenched in sweat, battered by endless waves of monsters. It was none other than Aloise. But a nightmare awaited him at the finish line. Christian stood there, waving casually, surrounded by the unconscious bodies of the other survivors. Christian clicked his tongue, visibly irritated. "Took you long enough," his eyes seemed to say. "I was getting bored." Since they had a history, Christian offered a merciful choice. "You can faint on your own, or I can help you go to sleep." Aloise instantly realized the danger. Dark energy flared in his palms as he took a defensive stance. He hadn't been idle since their last meeting. He had trained, he had evolved. But tragically, no amount of effort can bridge the abyss between a god and an ant. Leaving the unconscious victims for the elders was part of the plan. 5 years from now, the first great war against the Alliance would ignite. Before the first drop of blood is spilled, Christian needs total control. The Dark Magic clan must belong to him. To achieve that, he had to be a tyrant. He couldn't afford to share even a single drop of the sacred darkness. With the pests exterminated, the prize awaited. It was time to claim his birthright, the fabled sacred darkness. Behind that heavy door lay the ultimate power, the catalyst that could turn a mere fiend into a true transcendent. Legends spoke of the Elder Clan head, a genius of his era who managed to absorb 80% of the darkness. That feat alone made him one of the strongest entities in existence, even during the age of demon monarchs. Then there was the Dark Destroyer, the clan's progenitor. He devoured over 90% and ascended to the throne of the Demon King. But Christian? He didn't settle for second best. If he devours 100% of this gloom, he won't just match the demon emperor, he will surpass him. He reached out. The moment his palm made contact with the swirling sphere of void, ancient power flooded his veins like black fire. Meanwhile, outside the sacred ground, the clan's higher-ups were in absolute chaos. The report was catastrophic. Every single promising prospect had been wiped out. Aside from that Kaza wretch, everyone was down. Even young Master Luan had been beaten to within an inch of his life. It was a complete disaster. The elders immediately lost their minds. They screamed of foul play, accusing Christian of using forbidden tools, demanding an investigation before the truth could spread. Amidst the noise, a cold voice cut through. The second young lady, Jupion de Baron, stepped forward. She scoffed at their panic. "That cheater won't even make it inside," she declared. "He's been in there for 2 days. He is already a corpse." They refused to accept the alternative. The idea that someone could continuously absorb that much sacred darkness was impossible. Even the great elder hit his limit back in the day. Their narrow minds couldn't conceive of a reality where Christian was superior. The sacred ground devours the weak. There won't be a body to bury. But beneath her calm facade, Jupion was boiling with murderous rage. If Christian somehow survived, she would carve the life out of him with her own hands. It was a matter of survival. After their father fell to the Alliance, she and Luan were adopted by their uncle, Viscount Lang. Their position in the clan was already hanging by a thread. Now that Luan failed to inherit the darkness, that thread just snapped. Without that power, no one would back her brother as a successor. Their future had turned to ash. Jupion's eyes burned with madness. The bastard of Khazar had humiliated them, and she would make sure he paid the ultimate price. Whispers echo through the clan estate. The servants mock the piece of trash trapped within the sacred grounds. The verdict? He is already dead, punished for his arrogance and greed. Yet, his devoted maid, the Banshee, stands vigil. She waits for her master, refusing to rest for even a moment. The servants snicker cruelly. They joke that the ghost of the master will soon reunite with his ghostly maid in the afterlife. Their insolence sparks a lethal rage. Marie's blade flashes, nearly decapitating a servant. Her heart is anxious for the young master, and she has zero tolerance for their filth. She will not suffer anyone tarnishing his name. If one more word of disrespect leaves their lips, Marie vows to transform them into mindless ghost puppets. Beneath her fury, however, lies a singular, desperate wish, to see her master's face once more. A man who keeps a maiden waiting is truly heartless. Meanwhile, the subject of these rumors, Christian, drifts through an endless void. Suffocating darkness crushes his throat. He has only just reached the 70% absorption threshold. The burden is heavier than anticipated, crushing his very soul. Yet, his will is iron. He refuses to break, no matter the pain. He is still far from 90% the true trial. Desire burns within him, but he must tread carefully. One slip, one overflow of power, and his mana core will shatter instantly. Death is not an option here. Not until he rewrites the tragic course of history. He is the protagonist of this saga after all. Suddenly, a memory surfaces, the ultimate catalyst, a dragon heart. Dragons possess the supreme vessels of power. In his previous life, he mastered the art of mimicking a dragon's heart structure, if only for a few fleeting minutes. He begins the metamorphosis, reshaping his own heart into that of a mythical beast. The effect is instantaneous. The absorption rate skyrockets, devouring the darkness with terrifying speed. But as he approaches his absolute limit, the strain becomes critical. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierces the void. Materializing before him is the first seat of Gehenna's seventh realm, the bewitchingly beautiful Mafina. By natural law, a high-ranking demon shouldn't be able to manifest here. But Mafina smiles. Demonic power is darkness. Forming a physical avatar from this pure abyss is child's play for an entity like her. This unique advantage allows her to offer Christian aid. No contracts, no conditions, no strings attached. Christian pauses. In all his years crusading against Hellspawn, he has never heard of a demon offering charity. Mafina laughs at his suspicion. She insists it is merely a fleeting whim. No grand schemes, just impulse. "Just take my hand," she urges, "and claim this sacred darkness." 1 week later, the clan head enjoys tea in the garden, with Simon attending him. Even the stoic patriarch waits for a miracle. 7 days of silence, yet he clings to the hope that the brat is still breathing. Aunt Marian paces, distraught. She cannot fathom why such a brilliant boy would succumb to such reckless greed. Simon reports the grim consensus. The higher-ups, led by Viscount Langham, are demanding a final ruling. The Viscount is pushing to seal the gateway to the sacred grounds immediately. They only await the elder's signature. But the old tiger does not take kindly to being cornered by ambitious whelps. Calling Simon a bloodsucker, his version of affection, he demands his loyal servant's honest assessment. Simon does not sugarcoat it. The survival odds are effectively zero. Yet, He cannot shake a nagging instinct. Christian might just defy reality. He is a fascinating young master, Simon muses. That is enough. The clan head slams down his decision, a one-day extension. Overruling Viscount Langham, the gates shall remain open for 24 more hours. Aunt Marion breathes a sigh of relief. Within this final day, they will witness if the boy can surpass the first Demon King's legendary record. Back in the void, Mafina pleads with Christian to take her hand before he is consumed. Without hesitation, he refuses. She scoffs at his stubbornness. Does he not know? A human vessel cannot contain more than a fraction of this primordial power. Yet, Christian's eyes burn with unyielding focus. He reminds the demon of a fundamental truth. In this dimension, concepts shape reality itself. Mafina freezes, realization dawning. Is he attempting demonization? The forbidden pinnacle of the mystic clan's arts. A technique where a mortal briefly ascends to demonhood to wield godlike strength. A double-edged sword, it is as deadly as it is powerful. Lena once perished under its crushing weight. Her life force shattered the moment the spell was cast. But Christian sees a different path. What if he modifies the formula? By removing the dark energy amplification, can he not reshape this world into a vessel, capturing the power without paying the ultimate price? Step by step, the theory becomes reality. Using this conceptual container, he smashes past the 90% barrier, inhaling every thread of sacred darkness. Mafina's eyes go wide. She cannot comprehend what is unfolding before her. A black crescent moon rises. A mere human, an insect in the grand scheme, transcends his fragile flesh. She stares in awe, wondering, who is this monster? Beneath that fragile human skin, Christian stares down the monstrosity. With quiet, terrifying confidence, he reminds the demon that he is a genius beyond comprehension. The beast might be content to rot in this hellscape for all eternity. But Christian? He has a destiny to claim outside these walls. As he turns to leave, Mafina's voice pierces the gloom, promising they will meet again in another life. But Christian just scoffs at the annoyance. Her words hang in the air like an unwelcome curse, followed by the demon's manic laughter echoing through the void. A harsh, grating sound scrapes against his nerves, and Christian thinks he must be truly mad to willingly return to the viper's nest awaiting him. The demon's cackle fades into the emptiness as Christian brushes off the chill. As he walks, he calculates just how long he has been trapped in this realm. By his estimation, a week has passed. The main family must be in absolute chaos by now without him. A wicked smirk curls on his lips. Since they couldn't find his corpse, it is the perfect moment to pull a little prank on those who wished him dead. He rips off the mask and steps out of the dimensional rift, materializing instantly before Lord Viscount Macfield. The servants at Macfield's side freeze. They rush to inform the young master that Christian has returned from the dead, sending shockwaves through the estate. Disbelief washes over Viscount Lang. The acting head of the dark magic clan cannot believe the brat survived the ritual. With a voice low and dangerous, he demands every detail. The report claims Christian is barely alive, hanging by a literal thread of fate. The healer, exhausted and trembling, reports sensing pure, unadulterated darkness within the boy, but the energy is catastrophic. It swirls violently inside him, a chaotic storm with no order or logic. The verdict is unanimous. It will be nearly impossible for Christian to ever control this volatile dark energy in the future. They whisper among themselves, convinced that a trash vessel like him could never have safely absorbed more than 80% of the sacred darkness. To them, that precious power is now wasted on his selfish gluttony. A vassal steps forward, demanding Christian be held accountable before the Lord Viscount. The Viscount notes the insolence, but dismisses the mob with a sharp flick of his hand, ending the council for the day. Once the hall clears, the real plotting begins. He turns to Macfield, his eyes cold. Macfield confirms the report he saw Christian with the healer, and the boy's core is undeniably broken. The Viscount adds that Luan and Macfield are in agreement on the matter. The truth is darker. Luan was destined to be the young lord, the sacrificial pawn essential for their alliance with the Poison Magic Clan. But now, their grand scheme to wipe out the Poison Magic Clan alongside Jupion faces a catastrophic delay. The Viscount grimly notes that even their father has taken an interest in Christian. One small, insignificant fish is disrupting the flow of the entire river. Making a ruthless decision, the Viscount orders Macfield to drag Christian to the Darkness Hall at dawn. With a deadpan expression, he declares that he will announce Christian's public disposal before all the vassals tomorrow. The next day, Christian stands in the opulent palace, hands casually in his pockets, amused by how hard they are trying to discard him. He scans the crowd of self-important faces, noting how every major player has gathered for the spectacle. They are ready for a show. Lord Viscount Lang opens the trial, asking if Christian even comprehends the crimes he committed during the sacred dark rite. Christian nods, looking utterly bored, prompting the Viscount to demand a verbal confession. Christian shrugs and speaks the brutal truth. His peers were too weak to uphold the dark magic bloodline. His only regret is that he didn't hit them harder. A voice from the crowd shouts out, asking if those peers will ever walk again. The Viscount waves off the interruption, narrowing his gaze back to the accused. He points out the true sin. Christian has devoured the clan's most precious resource without producing a single result. Christian tilts his head, feigning ignorance, and asks what kind of results they were expecting from him. The Viscount states flatly that they demanded a purity of at least 70%. Christian raises a brow, asking what the penalty is for failure. The punishment is severe. Christian will be denied all dark magic techniques. He will be permanently banished from the main house and stripped of any right to inherit the House of Counter. Christian leans back, a dangerous glint in his eye, asking how they plan to judge him when even the clan head cannot measure his depths. Ashid, sitting nearby like a coiled snake, raises his hand and addresses Christian as his dear younger brother. He offers a twisted solution. Even if Christian's core is chaotic, a dark energy clash will reveal the truth. Luan has absorbed 70% of the sacred darkness. If Christian can defeat him, it proves his power is genuine. A hush falls over the room. Everyone knows a dark energy clash is not a duel, it is a method of execution. Even with equal amounts of energy, the one with higher purity will crush the other instantly. When similar ranks clash, purity is king, and the loser faces the total destruction of their magical core. Christian smirks, realizing the game is rigged. Ished is a snake hiding in the grass, sneakier than expected. But a challenge? He never backs down. He lays out his terms with cold confidence. If he dominates this fight, the clan head has no choice. He will take the young lord trial. Ished nods, his voice dripping with false magnanimity. He agrees, claiming that in the arena, bloodlines don't matter, only strength. In this magic empire, power isn't just everything, it is the only law. The room goes deathly still, the air thick with suffocating tension. Aisha's voice cuts through the silence with a dire warning. This isn't just a spar. One wrong move, and Christian's magical core will be shattered into dust. To maintain the illusion of fairness, Ished makes a grand show of suppressing his power. He lowers his output to a mere beginner 2-star level. He knows his energy purity is still leagues above the rest. But Christian just squares up with a savage grin. "Stop playing nice," he taunts. "Come at me with everything you have." His eyes gleam with dangerous intent. "Or are you afraid I'll be the one breaking your precious core today?" Ished chuckles, amused by the sheer arrogance. He wants to see if the brat can back up those words. The duel begins. Dark energy erupts like a volcano. The air crackles as their powers collide in a chaotic tug-of-war. But then Ished's eyes snap open in sheer disbelief. Christian isn't even breaking a sweat. He's not generating power. He's effortlessly redirecting Ished's own attacks right back at him. Panic flickers in Ished's gaze. He grinds his teeth, tempted to crank his output to the expert 2-star rank. It's humiliating that this upstart is making him actually try. Ished roars, trying to regain control. "Is this all you've got?" he screams, desperate to crush Christian's overwhelming swagger. A bystander screams in terror. If Ished unleashes 4-star energy now, Christian's core will be instantly obliterated. Christian ignores the noise. He moves like a phantom, pressing the attack with surgical precision. A barrage of dark arts rains down, forcing Ished onto the defensive. With a cold smile, Christian flips the script. He throws Ished's earlier arrogance right back in his face. "Careful now," he taunts. "Lose control, and your core is toast." Suddenly, a crimson line of blood trickles down Ished's chin. The strikes are connecting. Christian towers over his opponent, eyes cold. "Had enough?" he asks, while his inner thoughts turn murderously dark. He fully intends to grind Ished's core into dust. But just before the final blow, Ished taps out, gasping as a terrifying realization hits him. Christian's dark energy. It's at 90% purity. Viscount Lang's face drains of all color. 90%. The number hangs in the air like a guillotine blade. Christian stands amidst the shockwaves, radiating absolute main character energy. He locks eyes with the Viscount. "I guess that earns me a shot at the young lord title, doesn't it?" Deathly silence fills the hall. Viscount Lang looks rattled, his mind racing for an excuse, but he finally speaks up. Christian has earned the right. He is officially a candidate for the young lord trials. But there is a massive catch waiting in the shadows. No branch family member has ever survived this path. As the acting clan head, the Viscount announces he will randomly select the trial himself. Christian's eyes narrow. He sees right through the setup. He knows he's being handed a suicide mission, a trial designed to be his execution. The Viscount lays down the law. Christian will be judged in 2 hellish stages. First, a display of overwhelming raw talent. Second, he must achieve a legendary feat worthy of a true lord. Christian stays silent, calculating. Then comes the kicker. He must reach the 3-star rank, and he has exactly 3 months to do it. On the outside, he is stoic. Inside, Christian is laughing. 3 months? For a genius like him, that's practically a vacation. He isn't sweating it at all. The Viscount feigns excitement, his smile not reaching his eyes. I can't wait to see what you achieve. Yeah, right. Later, behind closed doors, the mask comes off. The Viscount tears into Ished for his pathetic, humiliating performance. Ished hangs his head in shame. He admits he messed up big time by underestimating the monster hiding inside Christian. His reputation is in the trash. But they agree on one terrifying truth. Christian is dangerous. They need to neutralize him before he becomes untouchable. Viscount Lang calms Ished down, reminding him of the golden rule. There is a reason the elite never absorb dark energy with more than 70% purity. It's a trap. The purer the energy, the harder it is to rank up. The difficulty doesn't just increase, it spikes exponentially. Hitting 3-star with that level of purity would take a normal mage decades. Ished finally connects the dots. What happens to someone running on 90% purity? The Viscount smirks, his eyes cold as ice. Talent doesn't matter anymore. He has hit a wall he can never climb. Meanwhile, Christian is casually enjoying a meal when Rana bursts in. His savage victory is already the talk of the entire mansion. Her heart is racing a mile a minute, adrenaline and admiration mixing in her veins. She straight up tells him he's dripping with charisma. Christian gets a little flustered by the intensity. But then Marie steps up, dropping a heavy emotional confession. While waiting for him, she realized the truth. She missed him like crazy. Every day without him felt like a hollow eternity. Just then, another woman interrupts the tender moment. She rushes over, frantically scanning Christian's body for any battle scars. Marie scoffs, claiming Christian is too fast to get hit, but the woman insists, her worry overriding logic. She grabs his hand, checking him anyway. Gently, she calls Marie out. There is no shame, she whispers, in admitting you were terrified of losing him. She muses aloud, wondering if the weight of the world is hers alone to bear. Noting that even the hero, Evan, seemed burdened by invisible chains. Christian falls silent, letting the moment wash over him. It has been an eternity since he felt warmth this genuine. Ever since he clawed his way out of that nightmare clan, the one that hunted him like prey, his existence has been nothing but ice. His past life? A torrential river of blood. Yet, in the suffocating depths of that darkness, he found them. People with souls shining like pure gold. Now, finally, he wields the power to shield them and the strength to voice the words buried deep in his chest. Frozen in that single heartbeat, he leans in, whispering his deepest gratitude to Marie. At first, she simply blinks, her mind racing to catch up. But when he doubles down, thanking her for her endless patience, the truth strikes like lightning. Pure euphoria crashes over her. It clicks, he finally understands her. He sees her, truly. Suddenly, her heart hammers against her ribs like a war drum. Christian smirks, teasing that she must be heartless. But she doesn't miss a beat, firing back instantly. She claims it is missing because he stole it. Young Master Christian, the phantom thief. He laughs, admitting that, since she waited this long, she deserves a proper reward. He suggests a stroll together. Marie freezes, completely blindsided by the sudden shift in atmosphere. She searches his gaze. Is he for real? He nods, cool as ice. The second they step into the open air, he drops the bombshell. He is on a deadline. 3 stars, 3 months. He admits it is going to be a brutal grind through hell itself. Even with the Branch family tutors, it is a long shot. Controlling 90% pure dark energy, that is basically a suicide mission. Marie shoots back a playful jab, noting that he is still the same old chaos magnet, hunting for trouble wherever he steps. Suddenly, the vibe shifts. Christian's aunt sweeps onto the scene with an imposing presence. He bows respectfully, but her sharp eyes are already scanning him. She hints that casually wandering the garden might not be the smartest move for a man racing against time. She grills him immediately. Has he found a mentor? Christian tries to play it smooth, suggesting that perhaps she could step up to the plate. She shuts him down instantly, cold. He chuckles, joking that she really built up the suspense for absolutely nothing, but she orders him to follow. He turns to Marie, apologizing and promising to link up at dinner. She nods, watching his silhouette fade. As he falls in step with his aunt, Christian comes clean. He has zero clue who she picked as his teacher, but he thanks her for the assist. She cuts him off sharp. Gratitude is premature. She warns him that once he meets this man, he will understand why she is saying this. This teacher? He does not believe in soft love. She reveals that literally none of her siblings could survive his training. She locks eyes with him. This is a one-time ticket. Give it everything. Failure is not an option. As they walk, they spot a small child loitering nearby. Christian glances over, mentioning the kid looks totally lost. He crouches down, asking about his parents while playfully ruffling the boy's hair. And then boom, a massive shockwave tears through him. His aunt hisses, telling him to watch his manners and greet the superior first. Reality snaps into razor-sharp focus. Christian nods, realizing the toddler before him is actually the clan head's incarnation. He immediately bows, showing proper reverence. But as Christian activates his mana sense, he realizes the kid's power is hovering around 90%. Scratch that, it is even higher. Christian admits it internally. This guy is a monster. He has achieved the impossible. The clan head waves off the praise humbly, but keeps it real. It was a reckless gamble. He asks if Christian understands the stakes. Christian nods. He knows. The clan head explains that even absorbing 80% of the sacred darkness forced him to climb mountains steeper than anyone else. He points out a hard truth. Even their legendary progenitor would not have survived this level without the Demon Emperor's grace. The clan head admits he cannot even picture the living hell Christian is about to walk into. So, he offers an out. If Christian wants, he can vent some of that pure dark energy back into the ether. Just let it go. With Christian's raw talent, he could dominate with 80%. Anything more than that? That is just arrogance and greed. Christian takes a deep breath and asks permission to drop the filter. He hits them with a question that leaves his aunt stunned. He points out that the Dark Magic clan might lag behind the Mystic or Undead clans, the ones sitting on the throne of heavens. But they are still looked down upon as the runts of the 12 noble families. The clan head raises an eyebrow, curious if Christian thinks there is logic behind the disrespect. Christian does not hold back. He admits the clan has grown. It is bigger than ever, mostly thanks to the clan head's grind. But the streets are still talking. They say the Dark Magic clan lost its spark. Christian drops his theory. There is only one reason. They lack numbers. Specifically, people who have smashed through the ceiling to reach the absolute stage 8 stars. He silently visualizes the nightmare future, the day the Demon King of Carnage kicks in the front door. By then, Nordia will be reduced to nothing but ash and memories. The clan will possess 0 8-star warriors. Just a handful of 7-star fighters will be left standing in the rubble, leaving their defenses completely shattered. When that apocalyptic storm strikes the clan and their 10,000 soldiers, they will get crushed by the Demon King. It will be total defeat. They will end up wearing the collars of slaves. And this confirms the harsh truth. Absolute 8-star warriors are not merely a luxury. They are the sole barrier standing between the clan and total extinction. The clan head is not blind to the nightmare lurking in their future. He knows exactly what is at stake. The crushing, suffocating weight of dark energy can paralyze a user, stripping away their potential to level up. But he has to wonder, does Christian possess the guts to endure this? Christian stands firm, his eyes burning with unshakable resolve. He asks himself a crucial question. Will he merely serve as a battery for the Dark Magic clan? Or will he shatter his limits and evolve into a god-tier entity of infinite power? The old man lets out a dry chuckle, hyping up the brat's audacious claims while dropping a dark hint. I hope you do not choke on those words later. Christian flinches with a jolt of shock as reality snaps and shifts around him. He is instantly teleported into the heart of a suffocatingly dense forest. Lesson 1 of inheriting pure dark energy drops right now. Do not die. The hair on his neck stands up. A lethal danger is creeping closer. He snaps into focus, scanning every shadow with laser precision. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to the observation deck where the clan head and Christian's aunt are watching the feed. She instantly realizes the brutality of this setup has returned. She throws shade at the head, reminding him that tossing a 2-star rookie into a pit with 4-star magic monsters is basically a death sentence. The head just smirks, clapping back that facing a single monster would be a total snooze fest for this trial. Back in the arena, Christian catches a blur of motion. Is that a rock lizard? Simultaneously, his aunt clutches her chest, her heart aching with worry. She absolutely hates seeing him thrown into this meat grinder. But the clan head drops some harsh wisdom. You do not learn the true essence of pure dark energy in a classroom. You learn it when you are staring death directly in the face. Desperation is the ultimate teacher, granting the deepest understanding. It only strikes when you are one breath away from the afterlife. His aunt silently prays the kid does not suffer too much trauma during this hellish test. Then, the mood whiplashes. The head casually turns to her asking, "You got the goods?" He grabs the homemade sweets she prepared, his face lighting up like a kid on Halloween. Apparently, he always craves a sugar rush. After wielding dark energy, he kicks back to watch the feed, noting that cinema hits different when you watch it in the dark. He settles in, ready to enjoy his grandson's training arc like a blockbuster movie. Meanwhile, back in the danger zone, Christian squares up against the threats, realizing he has been played. It is not just a rock lizard. A twin-headed bear has joined the chat. Thrown into the deep end of this survival game, Christian starts getting annoyed. He knows one clean hit from these tanks would pulverize his bones. He stays on the move, but the rock lizard suddenly launches a stream of toxic venom. The acid hiss startles him, serving as a harsh reality check. One slip up in this place, and it is game over permanently. But he grits his teeth, reminding himself that this is still just a twisted training assignment. Surely the old man would not hand him a glitchy level without a way to beat it. Right? The clan head picks up on his mental wavelength telepathically, confirming that there is no cheat code for this situation. Christian processes the grim news. He wonders if the old man wants him to figure it out solo while facing a monster that outclasses him in every stat. However, Marion drops the truth bomb. It is not about solving a puzzle. The clan head just wants to watch Christian get ragdolled and tossed around to test his pain tolerance. Christian exhales sharply, accepting the madness. He decides that this nightmare is just another level he needs to clear. As he clashes with the rock lizard and the bear, he clocks their insane speed and force. But his battle IQ kicks in. There has to be a strategy. The beasts start closing in. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, the clan head admits the kid has sauce. He comments that Christian definitely carries talent, noting his movement style is built different from the others. Marion nods, impressed. But she reminds him he is still just a child though. Smash cut to the fight. Christian slams the massive bear into the dirt and stands on top of it like a conqueror. The audience freezes in pure shock. The clan head leans forward, baffled, demanding to know how he managed to pin such a beast. Christian breaks it down. The bear is a tank, with massive strength and defense, and while a head-on collision is suicide, its speed and zero magic resistance are its fatal flaws. He explains he baited the attack and injected dark magic straight into its heart the second it opened up. In that split second, Marion's eyes darted to the clan head, disbelief written all over her face. Could it be? That was dark death. That was the master's signature technique, but there was no time to celebrate. Christian spun around to face the rock lizard, knowing this boss battle was far from finished. The reptile charged like a tank. Christian landed a heavy impact, but the beast just kept spewing deadly poison. Christian analyzed the gimmick in a heartbeat. This monster possessed 3 stone hearts. Unless he shattered all 3 at the exact same time, it was practically immortal. He had to act fast. Shifting gears instantly, he lunged straight for the beast, locking his target on the lizard's vital points for a fatal strike. With absolute ease, he obliterated them all. Esha watched, completely shaken. That aura was not just raw power. It carried the distinct stench of dark death. Needing answers, he turned to the clan head. The old master, his vision blocked, simply waved him aside to get a clearer view. Then, he shot a sharp side-eye toward Marion. Did you teach him that move? She remained ice-cold. Not me. The clan head muttered that such high-level skills were hardly beginner-friendly. Isha shrugged. Well, if he is this broken already, why even bother studying dark magic? But the clan head shut him down instantly. That is enough. The trial is over. Christian approached the throne as the head admitted the kid did not just pass. He had absolutely shattered every expectation. Good work. Panting heavily, Christian grinned, admitting the brutal brawl was actually a solid learning experience. He credited the master, claiming he finally figured out how to channel that dark energy on his own terms. The clan head narrowed his gaze, his voice dropping low. Do not get it twisted. Overconfidence kills. He declared it was time for the true curriculum to begin. With a simple flick of his wrist, he signaled the others to leave. They read the room and slipped out, leaving Christian alone with the old master. Before dropping the first lesson, the head pivoted. What do you think magic actually is? Christian did not hesitate. Domination. Controlling the enemy with perfect darkness. The clan head pressed harder. And what is perfect darkness? Dead silence. Christian froze, realizing he had no answer. Watching the kid struggle, the head motioned for focus, unlocking the seal. That is where true darkness hides. You must descend, step by step. Christian leaned in as the master explained the depths. 12 abysses await you. A heavy pause followed before the head began to chant, his voice resonating through the hall. He invoked the wisdom-seeking crow, commanding it to honor the pact and swallow its master in pure shadow. The chant ended. He thrust a hand forward, molding the very air until a mass of dark energy materialized right in front of him. Christian's eyes went wide as black lightning crackled around the room. Then, bam! A razor-sharp chill slashed across his throat. He felt the blade, yet his skin remained untouched. The sensation of death lingered like a ghost. A conceptual blade, the head explained. Smooth as silk. It only cuts what it wants to cut. This fierce energy is the black sword. You have 1 month. Refine this power. Create your own black sword. Mic drop. The clan head spun on his heel and walked off, leaving Christian stunned in the silence. Grind mode engaged. Hours later, drenched in sweat, he ripped his shirt off and checked his reflection. Looking a little lean, he realized he needed to bulk up. He collapsed to the floor, debating if he had the juice for 1 more rep. Forcing himself up, he summoned the dark energy again, laser-focused. But there was a problem. It was brutal. He could summon the aura, but keeping it stable for more than 10 seconds? Impossible. Plus, his presence was weak compared to the head's complete darkness. Still, he figured if he just kept pushing, the secret to the 12 abysses had to be hidden in the technique. He started the chant again. Meanwhile, the clan head and Marion descended the stairs. They were expecting a disaster scene. By now, the kid must have realized he was completely out of his depth. "You worried about him?" the head asked. Marion sighed. "We have no choice. Only 2 months left until the young lord exam." The head nodded. "True, but with the purity of his magic, rushing is impossible. Push him too hard, and he breaks. Better to build a solid foundation than panic about the test." They stepped into the training hall. Christian looked up. Casual. "Oh, hey, thought you guys would be later." They froze. Christian bowed, grinning. "Thanks to your advice, I actually hit 3 stars. It went better than expected. Took me about a week to finally shape the dark sword, though." "I thought that abyss talk was nonsense," he admitted. "But I get it now. Each abyss represents a core trait of the sword." The clan head stared, almost annoyed by how good the kid was. He did not just understand the assignment, he manifested the true dark sword. The head was shook. It took him a full year just to form the basic version. A lifetime of work to master the 12 magics. And this kid was speedrunning it. Christian crushed it in just 1 month, leaving the master absolutely stunned. Is this kid the savior he has been waiting for? Later, the boss dropped a warning. "Get ready for tomorrow, because the kid gloves are officially coming off." Christian was pumped, trusting the old man implicitly and fully ready to face whatever hell awaited him next. But first, a well-deserved reward. Having shattered that first wall, he decides the moment is ripe for a little self-indulgence. He makes a beeline for the secret liquor stash, a foolish grin spreading across his face as he beholds the rows of pristine, crystalline bottles. His hand instinctively grabs a top-shelf vintage. He realizes with a jolt that he is holding the kind of divine nectar he once only dreamed of tasting. He attempts to sneak a quick sip before Marie intercepts him, but the moment the glass kisses his lips, boom, a wild variable appears. "Day drinking?" A cold voice sneers, instantly analyzing his worth. "You really haven't changed a bit, have you?" Christian draws a total blank. Who is this woman? All he senses is the terrifying pressure of a 3-star mage radiating from her core. Her eyes betray the truth. This aura. She definitely does not hail from the standard dark magician lineage. Does she actually know him? His visible confusion sparks her irritation. Deeming him utterly useless, she blasts him into the dirt without a second thought. Her bodyguard turns pale, panic in his voice. "My lady, please do not waste your precious mana on trash like him." Christian sprawls on the floor, nursing his bruised ego. Suddenly, an elder rushes over, desperate to de-escalate the volatile situation. "What is her deal?" Christian snaps, dusting himself off. The elder drops the bombshell. "That is the young lady Marissa, heir to the ultimate poison dark magic family." Christian's brain short-circuits. Wait, if she hails from that legendary clan, could she be his fiancée? The old man shakes his head solemnly. "Correction, young master. That is your ex-fiancée." Marissa storms off, her mind drifting back to the dark days of the past. She remembers being 8 years old, sitting alone in a garden, convinced the world only had eyes for her golden boy brother. Why did her father even drag her to that suffocating dark mage gala? She felt completely invisible. Then, the whispers began. The crowd gawking at her, questioning if she was merely an illegitimate child. "A mistake?" they sneered. "I guess Duquang needs a spare heir since his son is infertile." The gossip was poison in her ears. "Looks like he needs a daughter just to bait a son-in-law." Suddenly, a young Christian waltzes into her gloom. "Why so lonely?" She snaps back instantly. "I'm not a kid. Leave me alone." She introduces herself as Marissa. When he reveals his name, realization dawns on her. "Oh, you're Baron Khazard's kid." But instead of mocking her, he smirks with unexpected confidence. "Ignore the ancient fossils. Just get strong enough to make them pay when you're older." Those words triggered something deep within her soul. She swore right there to become the ultimate dark mage and crush anyone who dared look down on her. Christian loved that fire. "That's the spirit," he grinned. Spoken like true royalty. "Since you're going to be the boss," he teased, "I better get on your good side right now." He extended a hand to pull her from the darkness. "Come on. Let me give you the VIP tour of the House of Dark Magic." She hesitated, then took his hand, sealing a memory. Back in the present, Marissa shakes the memory loose, but the heartache lingers. Even if their engagement was just a political band-aid to prevent war, it used to keep her awake at night, dreaming of the empire they could have built together. But no more what-ifs. She encases her heart in ice and heads straight to Viscount Langham's quarters. Langham plays the benevolent host. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She cuts straight to the throat, the relic in the neutral zone. He nods slowly. "Right. Your family kept the last one. I assume you aren't planning to be greedy again. Are you surrendering it this time?" Marissa's gaze turns glacial. "Because giving up isn't in my vocabulary. And let's be real," she adds sharply. "Your family wouldn't back down either." The Viscount admits she has a point. She drops her proposal on the table. A race. Both sides send teams. Whoever secures the relic first keeps it. But here is the condition. No more than 10 mages, and nobody above 3-star rank. Langham raises an intrigued eyebrow. Trying to avoid an all-out war? Marissa nods. Exactly. If we wipe each other out, our enemies win. We can't afford to bleed right now, especially with the Demon King's castle being a total chaotic mess lately. Langham agrees, but adds a spicy stipulation. Deal, he says, his voice dripping with intent. But if your poison family breaks the rules, we take this relic and the previous one. Marissa narrows her eyes. Define breaking the rules. He smirks. Sabotaging our team. We know how your family loves to play dirty. He knows their reputation for traps and treachery. Marissa keeps her face like stone. Don't worry, you won't see any tricks. She doesn't blink. Deal. The Viscount leans in, eyes narrowing like a snake. So, you are personally leading the ultimate poison dark magic squad? Absolutely, she confirms, voice steady as steel. He leans back, satisfied. Perfect. I finally get to witness the myriad poison. Maiden's legendary power firsthand. Marissa holds his gaze, unwavering. Expedition Day. I'll be there. And I'll be waiting for your dark mage team. Meeting adjourned. As she leaves, the Viscount strolls over to his chessboard. Game on. Clack. He slams a piece down, his mind racing. He's not just playing chess, he's plotting how to crush Marissa into dust. A twisted smile forms. This expedition isn't just a mission, it's going to be a bloodbath. 2 months fly by as the seasons turn. Christian is in full grind mode, pushing his body past the breaking point. But the atmosphere in the castle, it is shifting. The atmosphere is thick with unease, as if the world itself is glitching. Souls wander the streets, crushed under the heavy karma of their past lives. The weak don't just fail here, they evaporate into the void. Meanwhile, the envious lurk in the dark corners, eyes burning with malice. They sharpen their daggers, plotting bloody revenge. Others play the waiting game, treading carefully on the edge of a blade. They can feel the storm approaching. Christian ignores the murmurs and strides directly toward Viscount Langham's chambers. Langham arrives with his entourage, his expression cold. Listen well. It is time to separate the lions from the sheep. Christian steps forward, eyes focused. The moment of truth has arrived. He decides to unveil a fraction of his dormant strength. The air screams as he draws his blade. A perfect arc of destruction slices through the room, controlled chaos. It is a silent declaration. He is a predator, not prey. Rowan watches from the sidelines, his face pale with shock. That stance, that suffocating aura. It is the legendary dark sword arts. He stands frozen in fear. Christian's growth is monstrous. It defies all logic and expectation. Christian sweeps his gaze across the stunned crowd. He drinks in their fear, but suddenly hesitates. Something feels wrong. A memory from his past life strikes him with the force of a thunderclap. The clan head's warning echoes in his mind. Never reveal the full potential of the dark sword to Langham. Show him your true power, and he will bury you under suicide missions. The warning rings clear as a bell, and the second rule, never admit to possessing the extra resources. Christian replays the advice, a cold smirk touching his lips. He held back just in time. That devastating display was merely a drop in the ocean of his true power. Langham looks shaken, and that gives Christian a surge of satisfaction. He has impressed the patriarch while keeping his trump card hidden. Langham regains his composure, masking his surprise. Enough, he announces, locking eyes with Christian. Phase 2 begins now. He drops a bombshell. Our agents are hunting a catastrophic relic in the neutral zone. The Supreme Poison Clan is also involved. Langham's voice drops an octave. The stakes have never been higher. Then, he offers the bait. Succeed, Christian, and I will officially name you the family successor. Christian thinks. Too easy. He is ready to clear this dungeon solo. He calculates an easy victory, but Langham isn't finished. He cuts Christian's arrogance down at the knees. You will not be going alone. You are deploying with Princess Juvia's royal unit. The room falls into a deathly silence. The tension is suffocating. Langham twists the knife. This was originally Rowan's assignment, but I am granting the honor to you. Christian is blindsided but maintains his poker face. Understood. He accepts the command like a loyal soldier and marches out, guards trailing behind. Rowan turns to his father, panic flooding his eyes. He is going to ruin everything, just like last time. His father's face remains carved from stone. Relax. Everything is proceeding exactly according to the script. Just be ready when your moment arrives. Rowan nods, but a chill crawls down his spine. Those words offered no comfort. The next morning, Christian departs, his mind racing. The adrenaline fades, replaced by a cold knot of suspicion. Is this a setup? Langham might be throwing him into a meat grinder to erase him. Fear creeps into his heart. He cannot shake the feeling he is walking into a death trap. Then, it clicks. Langham said, this was Rowan's mission. Why the sudden switch? Christian scours his brain for the lore of history. In the original timeline, Rowan was the successor. Yet, during the Great War, Rowan was a ghost completely absent. That is a massive plot hole. As he walks, lost in thought, his spirit beast suddenly barks. You crave the truth? The dog teases, eyes gleaming with intelligence. Keep scratching behind my ears, and I might just spill the secrets of the world. Christian sighs, frustrated but desperate for answers. Fine. The dog grins wickedly. Let me tell you the tale of the Devil's Relic disaster, a shadow war, a bloody, unspoken feud between the Dark Mage House and the Supreme Poison Clan that history conveniently erased. The beast drops a revelation that shatters Christian's reality. It happened during the hunt for the relic. The Dark Mage House was completely liquidated. The Poison Clan barely crawled away with their lives. But here is the twisted part. Both sides buried the bodies and the truth. Worse, that cover-up planted the seeds for the coming apocalypse. Christian is shaken to his core. He hangs on every word, vibrating with tension as he demands the reason. The mutt does not hold back. Nordion was murdered, taken out in cold blood by none other than Marquess Langham's own son. If not for that betrayal, the Demon King of Evil Blood would never have crushed the Dark Mage family like an insect. One death fast-forwarded the end of the world. Christian freezes, his brain struggling to process this massive download of information. If the Dark Mage House was wiped out, does that mean he is just a placeholder? A sacrificial lamb meant to die in Rowan's stead? Ice-cold dread grips his chest. This is not just a mission. It is an execution. A four-dimensional chess move orchestrated by Marquess Langham. The pieces finally fit together. Christian realizes this is not a test of skill. It is a death sentence wrapped in glory. But without proof, he cannot go rogue. He checks his status. He is only at the third stage of mastery, far from God tier. What can he actually do against such odds? Nothing. Playing it cool is his only survival strategy. He decides to step outside to clear his head. He centers himself, taking a step toward the exit, but suddenly tension spikes. A voice slices through the air like a blade. Halt. Where do you think you are going? Christian stops dead in his tracks, pivoting slowly to face the disturbance. Standing there is a young man, his face twisted into a permanent scowl of palpable disdain. Christian hits him with a dead-eyed stare, his voice frigid. Does my itinerary concern you? The question hangs in the air as the boy steps aggressively into his personal space. The accuser speaks, his voice dripping with envy. He heard Christian made the expedition team a position Christian claims he never even wanted. Sure, buddy. Keep telling yourself that. He claims he's just checking in, but the subtext is clear. He's here to make sure Christian doesn't fumble the opportunity that was meant for Rowan. It's obvious bait, clumsy and desperate, but Christian doesn't bite. He maintains his icy composure. So what? You want me to sit on my hands? Then, he delivers the killing blow. Langham picked me because he knew Rowan would choke. The truth strikes like a physical blow. Snapping, the boy roars, blindly charging forward and swinging his sword with unadulterated rage. Steel sings through the air, a lethal arc aimed straight for him. Christian doesn't even blink. He sways to the side, smooth, effortless, as if he's simply bored. The attacker freezes, his brain lagging behind reality. He can't process how Christian just ghosted his attack. Christian shoots him a look of pure pity. I think we're done with the pleasantries. We clearly hate each other, so do us both a favor. Don't look for me until the mission starts. He turns his back on the threat, muttering about having actual work to do. The boy is left standing there, staring at his retreating figure in disbelief. The rival throws a petty good luck prepping at his back. Christian keeps walking, completely unbothered, living rent-free in the kid's head. As he lowers his sword, the boy stares daggers at Christian's back. But slowly, the rage fades, replaced by a chilling realization that makes his blood run cold. Christian didn't flinch. He stared right down the barrel of that blade and moved at the absolute last microsecond. He let it miss on purpose. The kid shudders. Christian isn't just lucky. He's lethal. Cut to the town center. The place is popping. Streets packed. Energy high. Merchants are slapping fresh paint on signs, frantically setting up shop for the day's trade. It's a sensory overload, loud colors, shouting vendors, and the mouth-watering scent of street food drifting through the air. Through the buzz of the crowd, Christian zeroes in on a food stall and grabs some grub. He starts chowing down right there. Locals pause, side-eyeing the noble acting like a commoner. The stall owner rushes over in a panic, terrified of offending a highborn, but Christian just flicks him a coin without missing a chew. He strolls off, snack in hand. Between bites, a thought hits him. When was the last time I actually tasted real meat like this? Total Zen mode. If he had it his way, he'd spend the rest of his days just gaming and gorging. But reality calls. Back to business. He recalls a specific shop that should be right around the corner. Mid-chew, the hair on his neck stands up, killing intent. Someone's watching. He weighs his options, make a scene, or lose the tail. He sighs heavily. What a drag. Judging by their sloppy stealth, these are definitely Langham's bottom-tier goons. Spies. But before he can make his move, wham! A hand clamps over his mouth from the shadows. His pupils dilate, panic spikes for a split second. Before his brain can catch up, a girl materializes and yanks him into a dark alleyway. She holds him tight, signaling for absolute silence. Christian manages to twist his head around. Desperate to identify his kidnapper, he strains for a look. Finally, the mystery girl releases her grip. She drops the bomb straight up. You picked up a tail. But don't worry, my squad already smoked them. He can breathe easy now. Christian isn't buying the comfort. Still reeling from the ambush, his voice spikes. How exactly am I supposed to chill after that? After getting snatched off the street, he snaps, demanding a name. Cool as ice, the girl reveals her identity. I hail from the evil king's castle. The name hits him like a physical blow. He freezes. Without missing a beat, the girl pushes forward, explaining that she's on a critical mission to crush the dark omens plaguing the evil king's castle before they spread. We need to move, she urges, her eyes locking onto his. Are you riding with me? Stunned but curious, Christian doesn't waste time hesitating. He gives a sharp nod. Lead the way. She takes point, setting a rapid pace. After a beat, he breaks the heavy silence, asking for their destination. Without even looking back, she starts spilling the tea on the nightmare unfolding recently. People from the evil king's castle are vanishing into thin air, leaving zero trace behind. She reveals that the so-called safe zones are being wiped off the map, one by one. It's a war zone out there. The region is locked in a three-way deadlock between major families, a place ruled by pure terror. According to her, the patriarchs of these clans couldn't care less if their people live or die. They are merely pawns. That's why she's rallying the troops, seeking help from key families to root out the rot causing this chaos. But she knows how the world works. She can't ask for a favor without putting something heavy on the table. She promises intel, the kind that could silence the storm, threatening to crush the Dark Mage family completely. Christian listens, absolutely floored by the scale of it. Then, she drops the nuke. Marquis Langham is secretly in bed with a heavy hitter from the ultimate poison dark magic family. Their target? Marissa, the daughter of that very same clan. They want her gone. Permanent erasure. The revelation hits Christian like a truck. Why his people? Why Marissa? It doesn't add up. As he presses for a motive, the shadows of conspiracy deepen. If the scales tip now, the 27 forces will tear each other apart. The ringleaders in the evil king's castle will descend into absolute madness. That chaos would ripple outward, shattering the fragile truce holding the 12 dark mage families together. The result? Total annihilation. Her warning is sharp as a blade. Secure the relic at all costs. She places a heavy burden on his shoulders. He must rise as the young lord, strong enough to crush the peacebreakers into dust. Hearing this, Christian narrows his eyes. How does she know about the secret succession war? Her intel network must be god tier, but he is no rookie. He isn't swallowing the bait. Why should I trust a ghost like you? He challenges her, demanding receipts. If she wants an alliance, she needs to cough up some real collateral. Frustration flickers across her face. Seeing her hesitate, he prepares to cut ties immediately. Assuming she's bluffing, he turns to leave, but she stops him, eyes burning with desperation. She pulls an object from her gear and tosses it through the air. Christian snatches it, and his pupils dilate. It is the last thing he expected to see. Without a word, he spins on his heel and walks away, mind racing. Behind him, the girl watches, her face an unreadable mask. She gazes down at herself, whispering to the empty air, "Why can't I just show my true face to Christian?" A monstrous shadow manifests beside her, voice grinding like stones. "It's for your safety. If he leaks your name, it is game over." She sighs, accepting the harsh reality. The monster nods solemnly. "We wait and see." He rasps her true name, Adrienne. She nods once. Meanwhile, Christian creates distance, gripping the card Adrienne handed him. A predator's grin tugs at his lips. Talk about perfect timing. He got exactly the key he needed. It is a pass to the dark auction house, the shady underground market where smuggled relics and rare beasts change hands. These cards are gold dust, reserved for certified nobles and the filthy rich. As the building looms ahead, memories flood back. In his past life, nobody had these cards. Getting inside was a suicide mission. Then the name on the card catches his eye. Leah de Wolfman. A name that doesn't exist in his memory. His mind snaps back to Adrienne's intel about Maris Langham's connection to the poison arts. Her warning loops. But he checks himself. He can't verify her identity yet. Blind trust gets you killed. He decides to play it cool and prepare for the storm. He hits the auction house and storms the counter, demanding a messenger pigeon with absolute authority. The clerk doesn't dare ask questions. He just nods and hands over the gear. Christian scribbles the name with surgical precision, attaches the note, and launches the bird. He watches until it vanishes into the clouds. Phase 1. Complete. He exhales, releasing the tension. Now for the real question. Is it time to face him? Christian steps toward the entrance, but the head of security instantly blocks his path. The guard crosses massive arms, looking down his nose. Beat it, kid. This place isn't for street rats. He gestures for Christian to scramble. Christian doesn't flinch. He casually lifts his hand and flashes the black card. The second the guard's eyes hit the plastic, his arrogance shatters. Pure, primal terror washes over him. He starts stuttering apologies like his life depends on it. Forgive me, VIP. The entire staff starts bowing and scraping like he is royalty. Christian strides into the main hall. The place is buzzing, packed wall to wall with high rollers and dangerous figures. An attendant slides up to him, looking totally confused. Excuse me, you are Leah de Wolfman? Christian keeps a poker face carved from stone. Yeah. You got a problem with that? The guy flinches at the deep voice but shrugs it off. No problem here. Christian cuts the small talk. Take me to the branch manager. Now. The guy hesitates, so Christian drops the temperature in the room. I said, hurry. They hustle to a private VIP suite. Christian takes a seat on the velvet throne like he owns the building. The guide, sweating bullets, promises to fetch the boss and bolts. Left alone, Christian analyzes the terrain. The vibes are immaculate. Old money and power, exactly what you expect from the Rudolph Merchant Group. He recalls the lore. This group is tight with the Union Deer merchants, powerful enough to run a black market right under the law's nose. Their fingerprints are all over the supply chains of the dark magic empire. Bottom line, if the Rudolph Group can't source it, it doesn't exist. The door swings open. A woman walks in, radiating boss energy. I am Ruvid, the branch manager, she says. All business. You asked for me. What do you want? Christian doesn't beat around the bush. Bring me Rowena. Ruvid freezes, the color draining from her face. Christian leans in, staring right through her soul. Don't play dumb. You can't hide from me. I know exactly who and what Rowena is. The dear merchant queen herself. Christian's smirk cuts deeper than a blade. Drop the act. I know you're right here, hiding behind that cheap artifact. High-tier illusion magic? Cute. But you'll have to do better than that to fool my eyes, Ruvid. Panic flashes in her eyes. The monoveil shatters, melting away her disguise to reveal the stunning face beneath. She's completely exposed. How? How did you see through it? Christian keeps his expression icy, but internally, he is replaying the past. Every betrayal, every misery she piled on him in the previous timeline plays out in his mind. Oh yes, payback is going to be sweet. Out loud, he laughs, tapping his chin. Seriously? That camouflage? Maybe the artifact just gave up because your face is too big to hide. She gasps, snatching up a mirror in pure horror. Impossible. This relic is flawless. Christian bites back a malicious chuckle. He is totally gaslighting her. The artifact is a masterpiece, but shattering her ego? That is just too much fun to pass up. Nope. Definitely the face size, he teases. Ruvid snaps, pointing a trembling finger. That is not the reason, you jerk. And you aren't just some nobody named Leah de Wolfman. You're a big shot in the Empire, aren't you? She tries to flip the pressure. Sneaking into a VIP club with a fake ID? Christian raises an eyebrow, unimpressed. Oh, are we playing the threat game now? Would be a real shame if rumors spread, he whispers, leaning in. About a certain Union official running black market deals deep in the dark magic empire. Bullseye. Her confidence turns to dust instantly. She lets out a defeated sigh. Fine. You win. What do you want? Christian smiles. Moments later, the table is piled high. Rare jewels, exotic materials, the works. Christian grins like a wolf. Jackpot. As she scurries off to fetch the rest, Christian feels the thrill of the plan clicking into place. He scans his inventory. It is the exact amount needed to brew that specific forbidden formula. This isn't greed, he assures himself with a manic glint. It's damage control. I'm preventing a disaster here. It won't make me a god, but it's enough to wreck at least one or two of Marquis Lam's backup plans. Christian exits the auction house, swagger fully intact, looking like he owns the place. He cuts through the training grounds, where the air thrums with the clash of steel and sweat. Suddenly, a voice booms out. Yo, where do you think you're headed? A grunt locks eyes with him, chest puffed out. Get in here and break a sweat with the rest of us. Christian freezes. He barely spares them a glance, waving a dismissive hand. Hard pass. I'm wiped out just walking over here. Besides, why waste energy training? It's not like I plan to fight like a grunt or like Rowan, for that matter. He spins on his heel, tossing a lazy good luck with the grind over his shoulder. The trainee stares daggers at his back, veins bulging. You coward. The guy is about to charge, but his buddy steps in, gripping his shoulder like a vice. Let him walk, man. It's not worth it. The peacemaker sighs, watching Christian leave. He gains nothing from this. If he keeps dodging real work, he'll be left in the dust soon enough. He shakes his head, muttering bitterly. Such a waste of talent. Why is a guy with that much potential throwing it all away? Christian just gives a subtle nod, accepting the hate as he walks away. Meanwhile, back at the negotiation, Ruvid is racking her brain to figure out his endgame. She tosses him a heavy bag of coins. Internally, he rolls his eyes. Uncultured savage, but beggars can't be choosers. I still don't get your angle, Ruvid admits, eyes narrowing. Just keep my identity on the down low, and the loot is yours. Christian smirks, stashing the goods. Relax. Your secrets are safe with me. Besides, he adds ominously, this isn't the last time our paths will cross. I'd prefer if it was, she shoots back. Ignoring the shade, he pivots. So, is it Ruvid today, or should I stick with Rowena? He lets the question hang in the air before dropping the bomb. War is coming. The Union and the Dark Empire, they are both sharpening their blades. The political temperature is hitting a boiling point. If this explodes into full-scale war, trade routes get locked down tight. One side will fall. And your profits? They'll get slashed in half overnight. Ruvid scoffs, waving him off. War isn't some game you joke about, kid. You sure about that? He challenges her skepticism. The whispers from the capital, they don't sound like fairy tales. She goes silent, the gears in her mind turning furiously. The tension in the imperial capital is real, and the noble houses are thirsty for blood. Why tell me this? She snaps. You think a simple merchant can stop an army? Christian leans back, cool as ice. Nah, but you could sponsor me instead. Back me up, and I'll build a future where that war never happens. Seeing her confusion, he breaks it down. Any invasion force has to march through the southern dark magic kingdom. That is dark mage territory. If I snag the Duke title and prep the defenses now, we dodge the apocalypse and your gold piles stay safe. So, do we have a deal? He knows it. I'm her best bet. Finally, she extends a hand. You're on. But screw me over. Her eyes turn cold, and I'll drop you in a heartbeat. Christian just smirks, shaking her hand. I don't repeat myself. Whatever you say, Miss Moneybags, he thinks, scoffing internally. Even if she did save his skin once. Safe travels, he calls out aloud. Cut to later. Christian is secluded in his workshop, locked in deep concentration on a new project. Since I'm dealing with the ultimate poison dark magic family, he muses, eyes narrowing. It is better to whip up a potent antidote, just to be on the safe side. It has been ages since he last brewed a concoction of this caliber, and honestly, he can feel the rust in his movements. Memories drag him back to his past life in the legendary medical clan. Christian is drenched in sweat, struggling desperately to keep a dying flame alive. Come on, fan it harder, Elra commands, her voice stern. Our clan never loses control of the fire. Who do you think you are? He snaps back, pushed to his limit. But then the truth floods in. He remembers meeting her on the bloody battlefields of the First War. She was just a child then, forced into combat after the Demon King Evil Blood slaughtered her entire family. Their healing arts were legendary god-tier skills that stood unrivaled among the 7 great allied clans. Naturally, the Demon King saw that power as a threat. Elra took a hit she couldn't heal. As Christian frantically fans the medicinal flames, she watches him, completely stunned. He recreated our secret medicine from a 5-second explanation? She thinks, her eyes going wide with disbelief. Where were you all my life? She whispers weakly. Christian grimaces at the sight. Even the saintly medical clan is crumbling into dust now. The clan head is already coughing up blood. He knows the only reason he is still breathing after the Demon King's attack is thanks to her brew. Elra hacks violently, body trembling, but forces herself up through sheer will. I can't rest, she gasps. Not while people are out there dying. This world is in chaos. It is a tragedy that our bloodline ends here. Forget the past, Christian yells, cutting her off. Just focus on surviving. But she ignores him, reaching for a book on the table. She reveals the ancient tome, passing down the sacred lore. It contains the last surviving secret arts, the final legacy of the legendary medical clan. Between violent hacking coughs, she begs him to accept it. He tries to get her to calm down and rest, but she suddenly latches onto his hand with surprising strength. Her eyes plead with him to save the suffering in her place, just so she can leave this world with 0 regrets. She passes the entire legacy to him. His voice is barely a whisper as he asks if he can finally call her master. It feels surreal, giving such a heavy title to someone who looks so fragile. But deep down, he knows she didn't miss. She picked the perfect successor. From that moment, Christian steps up as the 27th head of the clan. Even with a fragmented manual that barely scratches the surface of the clan's true power, he hits the battlefield. He has a blood oath to keep. He grinds until the world knows his name, the Saint of the Battlefield. Flash forward to the present. Christian murmurs a quiet confession to his old master, hoping she is resting peacefully in the afterlife. But even in this new timeline, nothing changes. He is riding or dying for that vow. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Marquis. He finally snags a letter from his young lord. A wave of pure anticipation washes over him. He chuckles, flashing back to how Marion used to go absolutely feral when she locked into battle mode. Wondering whose blood actually runs through that kid's veins, he rips into the envelope, dying to uncover the secrets inside. He shoots a sharp look at his aide, dropping the order. Time to set the stage. Get everything ready for my